Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, July 18th, and we are ready for our commission meeting. If we have members in the audience with a cell phone, please silence them so that we are able to get through this. Let's call the roll, please, Nikki.
Yes, Vice Mayor Bonish,
Here.
Commissioner Lehman,
Present.
Commissioner Corey,
Present.
Commissioner Kaye,
Here.
Mayor Fernandez is in the building. We have a quorum.
Thank you. If we could stand for a moment of silence, please. Commissioner Corey, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Should we start the presentations without him? I think we should wait for him, no? Should we wait for him to start our presentations?
You want to do the approval of the minutes?
Okay, let's do that. Can we do the approval of the minutes, please?
I need a motion.
I'll move a motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Corey,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish,
Yes,
minutes pass 4-0.
perfect. Should we move on to the city manager's report, or do you
What-
want to do something else?
Was
No,
it for both? There was two on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Shall we move to the city manager's report?
We
I'm
could.
trying to think of what we could do while he's not here.
Yeah, he had set to move forward, so
Okay.
we could do manager's report and then come back to presentations.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
figure it'd be good for him to be
Will
here for
do.
that.
We'll have our deputy manager present.
Hello. South Miami Park new field light improvements, the construction has been completed on that project. The final field inspection was conducted June 28th, so FPL released that job to the construction crews and it's expected to be done by July 26th. On the event side, we have several upcoming events. July 24th, Parks and Rec is hosting a round-robin pickleball tournament at Marshall Williamson Park. They'll be serving light bites and refreshments for participants on that. Saturday, July 27th is our back-to-school Splash Bash. That's an end-of-the-summer party. That is a resident-only event that'll be held at Murray Park. We have a workshop that was coordinated by Mayor Fernandez in collaboration with Transit Alliance. That is going to be held at Miami Senior Plaza, at South Miami Senior Plaza, July 30th from 10 to 11, and at Metro South at 1 p.m. And that's going to inform our active adults about upcoming changes that are related to the Better Bus Project and Metro Connect. Then we have an initiative that was championed by Commissioner Kaye, along with Commissioner Regalado. Bank of America is going to be hosting a financial literacy challenge. That's going to happen at the Mobley Building Tuesday, July 23rd for 7th to 12th graders, and registration is currently open for that. It's the end of the manager's report.
Thank you, colleagues. Any questions?
No, I just wanted to compliment our deputy city manager on another successful second Saturday, which was this past Saturday, right? Yeah, it was.
Yes, boss. Yeah.
It was, the team worked really hard on it, so thank you.
Colleagues, further questions or comments? Nope. Do we go back to presentations? We can? Okay, so let's start with the presentations, please. If you could read the first one to the record, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Yes. E1, Dr. Tina Scott, Medical Director of South Miami Children's Clinic, Miami Foundation Saltwater Fellowship Award recipient.
Great. So, Dr. Scott, why don't you come forward, please? I just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge you and this recent recognition by the Miami Foundation. If you could, would you mind sharing a bit about the fellowship? And this is an initiative on the part of the Miami Foundation to begin to address longstanding racial disparities across Miami. I imagine that you were selected in part because of your work in the area of health disparities and trying to rectify those. So I just wanted to give you a chance to, one, talk about your work, which we all greatly appreciate. Two, maybe share a bit about what you hope to accomplish with the fellowship, and then we'll do a quick presentation where we'll honor you with a certificate.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me this evening. So to be honest, I actually did not know anything about this fellowship, and it sort of fell in my lap. My neighbor from across the street sits on a bunch of different boards, and he heard about this particular fellowship and called me up and said, "This is tailor-made for you." And that's kind of how everything started. So you had to be nominated in order to apply for it, which I obviously got the nomination from him and then completed the application. The application basically, talked about the work that I've done over the last 17 years. And it was really a wonderful opportunity for me because the funds are unrestricted. So it's $100,000 over the next 2 years.
Fantastic.
And with the Miami Foundation, the reason why they started this inaugural fellowship was basically to support leaders in the community, primarily leaders of color that are working in underserved areas of Miami, and really, are struggling from a financial standpoint to continue the work that they're doing. And so they wanted to support leaders that have a track record, a proven track record of reducing racial inequities. And so I made it through the finalist round, and there were 25 finalists, and we had to interview in front of a panel, and then from there they chose 10 fellows from there. And I found out about a month ago that I was chosen as one of the 10 fellows. In my application, I talked about obviously the work that I've done in South Miami since 2007. Basically to provide high quality healthcare to that particular neighborhood. And besides the healthcare, working to address the social determinants of health, because one of the things that I noticed when I first started at the clinic in 2007 is that it was really difficult for me to push forth my medical agenda when you had patients or patient families that were dealing with all of these other issues in their lives, whether it was being unhoused or dealing with food insecurity or abuse in the home. And if I did not address those issues, then anything else that I was doing from a medical standpoint was basically not going to be successful. So that's kind of what I've been focused on. Is having resources to help these families, and the partnership that we have with FIU with their neighborhood health program has really been a wonderful collaboration for the last 10 years, because they park their mobile van in front of my clinic every Wednesday, and they see the families, the parents and grandparents of the children that I see at the clinic, and they also do home visits, and they address all of those social determinants of health. So, that's been great. I think for me personally, the reason why I really wanted to apply for this is to support the work that I'm already doing and to create additional avenues for access. As we've seen all over Miami, housing is a major issue. So many of our residents are dealing with not being able to afford rent and being unhoused. And we've had residents that have had to leave the community but still want to stay in the medical home, and they've been seeing me for the last 10, 15 years. And I've had to do home visits on a limited basis, just in my van, and meeting them where they are. So I would love to expand that a little bit, so that they don't have to change providers, and I can still, be able to give these kids the same medical care that they've been receiving, since I started at the clinic. So.
Well, amazing, congratulations. And
Thank you.
I'll let my comments, ask some questions or comments if they have any. But I would just like to put this question to you, which is, what can we do to support you in your practice and in helping folks access those additional services? I mean, 25 years ago, when I worked at the city of Miami, we worked very hard to use the earned income tax credit during the tax season as a vehicle for getting folks connected to dollars, and then other services, enrolled in food stamps or any other services they qualified for. If there's an opportunity to kind of use your clinic as a community center to kind of bring some resources to those families, as you're doing with FIU, in a way that we can help as well support that work, I'd love to just learn more about it.
I would actually love that, and I can tell you that the food insecurity I have not seen on this level since I started at the clinic, and these are families that were pretty secure, early on. And I've thought about how to help in that respect. Even having like a little pantry at the clinic. Where if I identify a family in need, that I would have some resources available for them. I think the other thing that I would love to do, and I did this actually before the pandemic hit, I won an award where I won $10,000, a Healthcare Heroes Award, and it was actually to teach kids how to swim at the pool that opened up. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and we couldn't do that. And what I did is that I funneled the money into a variety of things. So, I had emergency funds for families that didn't have rent money or they needed food and that sort of thing. And I would kind of decide on an individual basis who would get that money. So I used the money for that. I also used the money for those kids during the pandemic that were at home and could not go to school in person and then didn't have the computers to do online learning. And the community center actually had, a program there for those kids. And I gave money for that as well. So I think, having like an emergency fund would be something that I would love to have, moving forward. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to put some time into raising some dollars to help you do that. So please let me know. Commissioner Kaya?
I ditto the mayor.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for what you do in the community. I know we've been meeting to
Yes,
chat.
I
There's a lot
know.
of synergies that we're trying to do together. And,
Yeah.
we just get a little bit too busy, but we need to make an emphasis to get together on that. There's a lot of things in the community that we're starting up from scratch, financial literacy for kids, a lot of different programs for the community. I'm trying to get it all together, so I would love to pick your brain, same vice versa with the mayor and anybody else. We would love to help you as much as we can. My wife is also
No, I know.
FQAC type of facility. So we're always here for you, and let's just make sure we get together.
And I'll say one last thing. I think, probably, which, I think it's, it's across the board, adults and kids, the mental health crisis, and that's been huge. So I would say the majority of what I'm seeing now is that. I'm seeing probably 80% mental health. So the kids will come in with one thing, but then when you delve a little bit deeper, it's actually anxiety or depression that's kind of triggering the physical symptoms. So the resources are stretched really thin. Here in Miami-Dade County, and the waits to see a therapist or psychiatrist are like months long. So that would be another,
Okay.
yeah.
And also to mention, we just started a special
Yes.
needs board as well.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
getting a lot more input from the community to make sure how we can work together. We're only as strong as the community, so we're really trying to get engaged with that. We have a lot of social marketing engagement from people, resources that we set up in this building, so we can do a much better job of communicating and getting together. So it's a work in progress, but we got to work together.
No, I
Thank you so
agree.
much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So Dr. Scott, first, thank you and congratulations. But I just want to tell you sincerely, I remember when I first started how revered you were. No one was revered as much as you are in the city of South Miami. And that's the same case today. You're a beacon in the city, and South Miami's lucky to have you. And we love and appreciate you. So it's been an honor. And so, yeah, that's all I have to say. But
No, I
but thank
appreciate
you.
it. No, and thank you guys for, for your support too, because I could not do any of what I'm doing, without the support from the city. So I'm very, very grateful for that and very blessed, to be able to do the work that I'm doing. So,
All right, and I would just be remiss if I didn't also thank you and for everything that you've done and for bringing recognition and resources to the city.
Absolutely.
And I personally witnessed all the things that you did during the pandemic while we were up here as well, and I really appreciate all of that.
can I add one thing?
Please.
So obviously the clinic was started to see patients that were uninsured, and I've transitioned that where the majority of the patients are actually on Medicaid. But obviously, I had a previous life before this particular role, and and I have patients that live in South Miami that have private insurance that want to come to the clinic, and I think the beauty of what that we've been able to accomplish at the clinic is that we have different income levels. And these are, patients on the higher end who have a choice, and they could go to any pediatrician here in Miami-Dade County, and they choose to come there. And, and to me, it's, you rarely see something like that. And so, you can have somebody like up here and then somebody coming in with like no shoes on their feet, and it all works, And so the patients that are in the higher end have actually been some of my biggest advocates, where they bring clothes and they bring shoes and, all sorts of donations. And, I think what we've created is something that's really special. So.
Well, congratulations. Again, thank you for, again, shining in a wonderful spotlight in our city. And
Thank you.
if you come forward, we have a brief, a
Sorry,
small certificate for you.
Mr. Mayor, sorry,
Yes,
that,
sir.
that point.
Yeah.
If a clothing drive would help, because that's easy. We all-
Sure, why don't you go ahead and,
Would a clothing drive help?
Yes, absolutely. Because what we do, we have a table outside of the clinic and we just put free. And anytime we get donations, we put everything there and it's gone within 24 hours. Yeah.
I'll bring you all my skinny clothes.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Madam Vice Mayor, go ahead.
If you were to set up this pantry, do you have a space within
So
your
I can create the
space?
space and, obviously it would have to be non-perishables and, but yes, yeah.
Okay.
Could we do something targeted? I mean, you've got obviously a tight cohort of people that you're working with.
Yeah.
I mean, we could certainly reach out to Farm Share.
Yeah, that would be
And,
great.
and rather than do something that's open to the public, just open to those families, focus on non-perishables. And so I'm happy to help you coordinate that. And maybe we can get
No,
them to.
absolutely.
If you can we get
Yeah.
together, get a list of how many families, we can certainly reach out to them and try to do something that's
Yeah, and
targeted.
I screen almost every single family that comes in, regardless of whether they're coming in for
which
a
they will
preventative
love,
healthcare.
because they
Yeah.
want to make sure they're qualified. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, no, that would be awesome.
lots to
Doc-
work on.
Dr. Scott also coordinated the city vaccinations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, with the pop-up vaccine clinics, yeah.
Well, thanks again. Amazing work.
you. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Let's come forward, take a quick picture. Yeah, lots to work on there. So, Madam Clerk, if you can read item 2, please.
Yes, Police to Citizen Portal P2C Chief Hatfield.
Chief, you're recognized. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Just want to present an opportunity that we capitalized on here. When I came, I wanted to make sure that we were being as transparent as possible, as also as trying to be as efficient as possible. So I had staff look into ways internally that we could become more efficient and transparent. Our communications manager, Lisa Corbin, brought forth Police to Citizen Portal, and it really connects citizens in our agency through convenient access to public information agency online services. And just to give you some facts as you watch this video, in 2023, officers wrote 352 non-criminal information reports for citizens. In 2022, they wrote 283. The communications officers handled 212 security watch order requests, and in 2022, 192. This user-friendly reporting option will allow more time for us to focus our attention on traffic details, citizen concerns, community engagement, as well as concentrate on the crime.
The South Miami Police Department launched a new Police to Citizen P2C site. This site will allow the public to report certain types of offenses online without the need or assistance from a sworn or civilian member. The purpose of the site is to offer individuals a convenient way to file certain types of reports online. It will also reduce the amount of calls for service, which will free up officers for more serious types of investigations. The following criteria is required to follow a report online. The incident must have occurred in the city of South Miami. The reporting person must be 18 years of age or older. A valid email address is required. The following types of reports will be accepted online: thefts valued at less than $2,500, vandalism or damage to property valued at less than $2,500, and lost property reports. Police to Citizen connects citizens and agencies through convenient access to public information and agency online services. With P2C, citizens can search records, download reports, and submit non-emergency incident reports. User-friendly features provide citizens with self-service options that reduce foot traffic in the agency and workload on agency personnel. Some of the features include incident reporting. Citizens can submit non-emergency incident reports online anywhere, anytime, without visiting or calling agency personnel. Easy access to information. Browse and search incident, recent arrest records, as well as trespass warnings and CAD calls. Online submissions. Citizens can submit officer compliments or complaints, security watch requests, and file reports online. Daily Bulletin allows us to share our police blotter with our citizens and the public at large. Event mapping provides citizens with insight into what's happening in their area. Events are mapped to a block to avoid disclosing specific locations. P2C is mobile-friendly and runs on desktops, tablets, and phones, enabling citizens' engagement anytime, anywhere.
Any questions?
Colleagues, any questions? Commissioner Lieben? You got it?
Well, now I know how to keep my picture on the website once I'm out of office. But actually, what I would like you to do, I know it's not exactly germane, but today in the Budget Committee, where there weren't as many people watching, I was really excited to learn that we're going to add 2 motorcycle officers. So maybe after this presentation, if you would just announce that to the community, because I think that's a great addition.
Yes.
I know, but I want the chief.
Yeah, so the idea is to add 2 motor units and present that in the budget and for it to be accepted in the budget in the coming year. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Corey.
Chief, if we haven't already done it, maybe Brandon can help. It'd be great to have this on the app too, just as another way for people, since it's also a place where they're obviously reporting to the city.
The Show Me Connect app, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We'll definitely look into that. Brandon and Sam have been most helpful in putting not only the presentation together, but to get this compiled and on our webpage
Yep.
as well. And then we're also going to be adding our general policies and procedures on the website as well, so that any citizen can go on there and understand exactly what our policies and procedures are for law enforcement as we are creating them.
Madam Vice Mayor.
I don't know if this is so much a question for you as it is for our city manager and our communications people, is we're doing all of these really cool things. How are we informing the public other than social media? Are we going to send out a flyer? Are we going to mail something to people? Because if you're not like hip to social media, which a lot of our community may not be, it'd be nice to have a flyer or something to send them so that they can go and look.
Yeah, we also use the newsletter as a means to like update on things that are going on. Because you're right, not everybody's on there, so we're trying to populate it in as many places as possible.
Yeah, because it's great. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Lieben.
What about a welcome piece of mail when we have a new resident move into the neighborhood?
Yeah, I was going to actually mention that if you didn't add it. I think I mentioned to the manager in passing recently that it would be nice to put together like a welcome packet, and at this point, we should probably just send it out to every household. You know, we don't have that many households, so even at $10 a household, it wouldn't bust the budget per se. So we should talk about that further and see if we can figure that out for the next fiscal year, just to kind of have a quick list of services and advise people some of the changes we've made. I think would be
And a magnet with a non-emergency number and so forth.
Yeah, and we could add some promotional stuff for if some of the vendors or restaurants wanted to add something, downtown, they could add a promotional piece as well. Wouldn't hurt to support our businesses that way as well.
Not from the welcome standpoint, but a little bit more to what Commissioner Lehman just said. We did prepare a door hanger that has key components of how to connect with the city that we're going to be providing, that we're going to be distributing over time. Obviously, it takes time. But yeah, you had mentioned the issue of a welcome packet that maybe we can put together.
Great. Further questions? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate you.
I just want to say thanks to Ms. Corbin for bringing this forward to us. Thank you.
Thanks to her. Okay, Madam Clerk, item 3, please.
Park Month Proclamation.
Okay, so Mr. Director, you want to come forward? There you go, okay. He's able to stand in, so, correct. So Apparently July is Parks and Recreation Month?
It is, yes, indeed.
You want to give us some of the background?
For sure, absolutely. I just want to say good evening,
Good
Mayor,
evening.
Madam Vice Mayor, members of the City Commission, City Manager. Yes, so July is National Parks and Recreation Month, and on behalf of Quinn, myself, and the rest of the team who joined us here today, we are extremely appreciative of this proclamation. So, this year's National Parks and Recreation theme is Where You Belong, which really highlights how this department fosters a sense of community with the programs and amenities that we offer. So we're just extremely appreciative and happy about that. Some of the ways, I know some of them were mentioned earlier on, but some of the initiatives that we are driving are the pickleball tournament, which is on July 24th. We had a tennis tournament on July 12th. We have a multitude of youth programs, including volleyball clinics. We had a baseball camp. We had soccer clinics, and then we also had a community step challenge. So like I said, we're just really happy to kind of make this a declaration.
Colleagues, any comments or questions? Madam Vice Mayor?
My neighborhood has gone pickleball crazy.
Everywhere has gone pickleball
No,
crazy.
no. They're everywhere. I tell you, I live by Brewer Park. I live right off of Miller and 67, and we did that conversion of one of the handball courts or whatever it is to pickleball. And I have people that are always like, "Hey, when are we doing the other one? When are we?" I'm like, "What?"
The
And
more,
so,
the merrier.
no, and that the kids, you see them all now riding bike with their pickleball stuff. So I mean, you guys nailed it with that one.
Absolutely.
That's my
Thank
son,
you.
by the way.
Yeah, no, I cannot. It's everybody's son apparently. It's insane.
It took me years.
No,
Just to
it's
get
awesome. You know, we've seen a really good turnout at a lot of these free programs that we're offering. I mean, we have a volleyball clinic today which filled to capacity. So there's like 30, 35 people, individuals playing volleyball right now at the community center. So
Fantastic.
yeah, really happy about it.
And, go ahead. Sir, you're recognized. Go ahead.
I've never said this before, but I'm happy that Quinn's not here because we got a chance, and the community got a chance to hear from you.
No, absolutely.
And everyone in your department shines. It's just an incredible department.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, and certainly I want to recognize our Parks and Recreation team. I mean, the amount of work that goes behind the scenes to make things happen is just incredible on a daily basis throughout the city at all hours, weekends, nights, and so that's what makes the strong fabric of a community, and that's the value added of a community. So they're champions of that, and I want to thank them publicly, and thank you for recognizing this month. Obviously, we planned it the day that Quinn's not here.
He's here in spirit with
Yeah.
He was here earlier. It's okay.
But thank you for recognizing the month, but really what you're doing is recognizing our team and the hard work that they day in and day out. So I want to thank them publicly.
Well, I'll just close by saying, your department is definitely one of the ones that makes our little city special. And so we're grateful for all of you for your work, from arts and culture to working with the elderly to working with children and adults. I mean, you touch the full range of the folks that in every socioeconomic group, every race, right? You touch every aspect, everyone in our city. And you also are ambassadors for our city with people who live outside of South Miami and use our facilities. So we are indebted for all the work you do and the fact that you make us all shine and look good every single day. So thank you. And I will, if you all will come forward, please, we'll take a picture together up here and present the proclamation. Thank you.
I'll screenshot them in. Can you guys squeeze like you like each other? Squeeze. Love you. Where's he going? Alright. Here we go, guys. Everybody look over here. 1, 2, 3. Hold on, one more. 1, 2.
Are you guys? I just want to say thank you again. We are extremely appreciative of all of this, so.
By the way, excellent presentation on your part. Well done. Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we have an add-on item on
Yes.
today's agenda. If you could read into the record.
Yes, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, calling for a City of South Miami special election to be held on November 5th, 2024, for the purpose of submitting to the electorate a proposed amendment to Section 2A of Article 5 Elections of the City Charter to increase the term of office for the office of City Mayor to 4 years, beginning with the 2026 South Miami general election, providing for a notice of election, providing for a requisite valid language and charter amendment text for submission to the electorate, providing for the city clerk to utilize the services of Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections for the special election.
Thank you. Is there any objection to this item being added on to tonight's agenda? Colleagues,
I'll move the motion, Mayor.
do we need a motion or we just need to add it?
Need a motion to add.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kaye.
Second?
Oh, sorry.
Second by Commissioner Liebman, it's fine. Madam Clerk, if you could quickly call the roll. Thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Kaye?
Yes.
Commissioner Corey?
Yes.
Commissioner Liebman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes,
The item has been added to the agenda.
thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of June 18th?
Oh, we did already.
Huh?
We did,
Oh, we did it. Sorry, I missed it. Okay, thank you.
and the manager's report. as
So we
well.
still have the city attorney's report outstanding, correct? Okay. Mr. City Attorney, you're recognized.
I got nothing for you, Mayor.
That's great, thank you. We'll then move on to public remarks, and I have two names on the list, starting with Mr. Ward. Sir, you're recognized. Good evening, sir.
You know,
Mr. Ward, before you start, I wanted to ask you if you could do us a favor. I know, again, I offered you my condolences before on the passing of Ms. Johnson, who was obviously integral part of the middle school community here. If you could, we'll give you some extra time. If you could just share a little bit of background and history on her,
thank you,
we'd
Mayor.
appreciate that.
I sure will. It'll give me great pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
This lady, Enid Johnson, and I worked together for 21 years as assistant principals at South Miami Junior High. And she was going to retire in 1990, and I didn't have my 30 years in, so I begged her to stay another year, and she did. And then the next year, it was time, and I retired with her, and there were several, my wife particularly, I guess she didn't want me to be at home. She said, why are you retiring? And I told her I had promised Ms. Johnson one more year, and I'd go with her. This lady has been active. I mean, we had such a good relationship with the city that you wouldn't believe. The region office left us alone because they knew if they pushed too hard on something that we objected to, the community would be all over them. And that's the type of person she was. She got involved in the community even though she lived over town. And she was a tremendous person. And it was, I found it out this morning, and it was on TV later today, I hear. Now, I read this special election thing, and I tell you, back in the 90s, there were a couple of us that got together, and we pushed and pushed and pushed to get this done. And I'm so happy to see, I don't know why anybody would be punished for being mayor and having to run every 2 years. The rest of you run every 4 years, and that's the good thing. And then you have, I'll take a little comical attack here, and you have old man Liebman. I mean, when you look at it, he's working with 3 people that have been up there less than 2 years, and one person that's been up there less than 4 years. Now, he's gonna be lucky. He'll retire in November, I think it is. And he will then go back to being Josh Liebman rather than the old man. I think he's got 10 years in, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
13, yeah.
Anyway, he's the old man. The other thing I wanted to address was the fact that the annexation issue that was put out for a vote, I checked it the other day a couple of times, and the last that I heard a couple of days ago, we had a big turnout. I think the yeses were 48 and the no's were 39 or something like that. And it's really sad, but I don't understand why. Former city manager told me we didn't have to have a vote because we had over half of the people signed to put it on, to put it before you. The first time we got 500 signatures. Somehow or other, City Manager Alexander said he sent them to the county, and the county said they never got them. So we had to do it over again. And this time we got 390 signatures. And I know as well as you do, the ballots were sent out a long time ago. And if they hadn't voted by now, they're not going to vote. And it's sad because, if I'm not mistaken, it's not going to meet charter requirements. And that's a shame because we put a lot of effort into that. And we did the same thing about 10 years ago. We couldn't even give the signatures in that time. They were so upset with somebody put it out, additional taxes. Well, you know, if you looked at the form you all sent out, most of the people that live in a house like mine we were original house in 1974, and all of those houses didn't even get a tax increase. And then at the top of the letter it says you can deduct 400 and something because your trash pickup is in the budget and the county's is not, it's separate. So we lost on that one. But I wish we would have been able to say, and I wish, Mayor, that you would research it and see if it was possible that we could go forward and join this nice city.
So, Mr. Ward, just by way of a quick update, if you'd like one, we had a sunshine meeting, Commissioner Kaye and I, with the consultant and members of the administration and staff regarding the annexation and the status of it. I think by my recollection, we had about 115 total votes that had come in. I think it was
That's more than I knew.
107.
107, excuse me, and it was just, the no's were slightly ahead of the yeses. We have not done a great job of marketing that. We're going to bring a discussion item back, I believe, on the next agenda to see if we extend the time period and maybe match some of our efforts with some positive communication. I've gotten a lot of comments about what will my tax status be pre and post.
If you send out another ballot, tell them to wake up and mark it today because tomorrow will be too late.
That's correct, sir. So we're going to put out some more information and probably provide people an actual calculation as to what their cost would be under both scenarios. So we're still working on it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Yeah, please, you're recognized, sir.
Thanks. And Mayor, if I can say, Mr. Ward, independent of any vote, you're still South Miami. You're still part of our city. So thank you.
I'll always be part of the city.
Mr. Jacobs, you're recognized. You're next on the list. Madam Clerk, are there any other names on the list anywhere else? No? Okay. Thank you. Sir, good evening.
Everybody. Good evening. I'd like to talk about the City Hall vote.
Mr. Jacobs,
Is it up?
yeah, if you can put your microphone a little bit closer to your mouth so we can hear you. Thank you, sir.
In the City Hall vote, it was determined that you were going to sell it no matter what, or lease it. There was no question about what was going to happen. It was gone.
Sir, yeah, there's.
Because you're unanimous.
So just to be clear, with the ballot modification, the charter modification allowed us is to explore either option. So I believe we are still awaiting returns of the proposals, which are due tomorrow. And so we'll see what, if anything, we get from the market and what people's preference, the respondents' preferences would be with respect to leasing versus purchasing the property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, it was a very poor turnout. 13% of the people came out. And if it was a real vote, then what I didn't like was that you did it expedient because you had to hurry up because you're all unanimous. And that's my impression. That you told me that, I asked, why are you hurrying it? It's from December till March. There's another vote in August it could be. But you had to do it expedient because that's where the money was, I assume. Money is time and all that. So you got it done, and you haven't told us anything, though, about how long it's gonna take, and is there gonna be a library somewhere else? Is the city hall gonna be located somewhere else? That's a question that I have. You didn't have to tell us anything. People aren't paying attention. 13% of the people voted. Why is that? I mean, you say outreach, you're gonna do outreach. You don't do outreach for City Hall, but you're gonna do outreach for these little things. City Hall is pretty important, but you were so determined to do it that you didn't need to do outreach on it. Is that right?
I'm happy to answer, I'm happy to address.
Yeah.
So let me just address your comments and you can continue.
Okay.
If you want to pause the time for him,
that's
sir.
all
I think, number one, why did we do it the time we did it? I think we all wanted to be able to run a process and try to see that process to conclusion. A March election, there was a presidential primary election, so we had a ballot that wouldn't cost the city any additional money. So it was an opportune time to leverage that to put the question to the voters. I'll say that, you know, in past occasions, this commission in prior incarnations decided to move forward with a solicitation or direct negotiations without asking the public for any authorization on any count. So yes, we went through the trouble of soliciting feedback about whether to maximize our options, not just have to sell it.
Yeah.
So again, I understand, could we have done it on a November ballot? Yes, but the thing is, certainly this commission would not have had the chance to see the process through. Now, in terms of what's going to come forward, I think honestly the answer is we don't know. We may get some responses tomorrow, we may get no responses tomorrow. And the responses we get as we evaluate them may not be acceptable to any of us or all of us here. So, you know, all I can say is continue to follow the conversation because it is a evolving process.
Okay, so you don't know what's gonna happen to there's no way to tell what's
The
gonna happen.
the RFP expressed our preference to have the library on this site, as well as City Hall.
We have to have it on the site.
We have to have it on the site, and contracts with the county, we cannot locate the library any further than a quarter mile from its current location. So that's under a separate agreement, which took us, I would have liked to have gone to the ballot earlier, but it took us a year to negotiate an agreement with the county and the library. So all these things take time, sir, unfortunately.
Okay.
Did you want to add anything by way of comments?
Sure. I was just going to say, in the interest of fairness, and numbers can be spun any way you want, if we're being critical of 13%, I assume that number is based on total number of registered voters?
Yeah.
Well, for almost 100 years, what decided the city and who sits up here was less than twice that.
Less than twice of what?
Less than twice the number of 13%. Less than a quarter of the registered voters would vote for 100 years to decide who sat up here.
Yeah,
So
that-
relative to that, I really don't see it as that low of a
That was
turnout.
when only white people could vote and all that, right?
No, I think what he's saying is that
Is that
for
what you're talking about?
the prior, again, I think what you're trying to say is, correct, the special election, while it was a lower turnout than in a August or November ballot, admittedly, right? Still was a greater turnout than prior elections when we had in February, which determined the composition of this body. I think that's what Commissioner Lehman is trying to say. So, but in any event, so,
Well, in the city charter, until 2022, it said you had to have 15% for a vote to be valid, and it was taken out in 2022, I know.
I'm not aware of that provision or that modification. I don't remember voting on that provision in
The lawyer-
2022.
The lawyer told me that. He gave us the new copy and he showed it.
No, I think that was I remember this
That was another
conversation we
lawyer?
had with Mr. Ward, that there was not so, Mr. Secretary, can you clarify, because I don't want this to be a continued source of confusion and misinformation.
Sure, that section on the 15% is still in the charter.
Yeah.
But as I had explained, actually, Mr. Ward and I had very spirited conversations about that provision. That refers to referendum elections that are initiated by voters. So if you have a petition, then you bring in either an initiative or a referendum and you file the petition, and you get it there, you only need, I believe, 10% of the electors. They want to make sure that enough people are voting on this.
Yeah, that's important.
Correct, but it's limited to those situations where voters bring an initiative or referendum.
It does not apply to a city commission-sponsored
That is
referendum or initiative.
That is correct.
I think that's the distinction. Okay.
I have one more question.
Sir, go ahead.
About the ballot issue, you wanted us to make it easier for you to borrow money. And I heard you talking about $65 million. And I wonder why all the development won't pay for it. All this, you know, is Sunset Place not paying their taxes? Or did you give them a lower rate?
No, no, sir, I think I can,
Because they're sinking, I know.
do we have, are you done with your comments, or is that the last comment? I just want to,
Yeah, that's the last time.
okay, if it's a question, I think why are we, I'm sorry, what was the question again? What was the
The
comment?
question
No,
is, why do you want to change the borrowing rate? What, you're gonna float a loan on us, and is it just the
So I'll give you my, yeah.
Just the residents that
I-
are gonna pay an increased tax?
I understand. So here's the way I read the charter is self-defeating, right? I don't think there's any government in the world that should operate where the unanimous consent of the body is required to take any action. And the most pernicious part about the current provision is if today you wanted to adopt an initiative to raise $65 million to do projects in the city, and the voters approved it by a majority, this board, as I read the charter, if we don't act unanimously, won't be able to issue any debt pursuant to that authorization. So in effect, the voters could say, we want this, and this board could veto the will of the voters. What's before everyone to consider on August 20th is a modification that says, if we want to borrow as a city, right, this board by majority vote can approve any debt issuance if it's been approved by the voters, number one. If it has not been approved by the voters, then it requires 4 out of 5 votes by this council to issue or encumber the debt, right? Still a very high threshold if it's not voter approved. But if it's voter approved, simple majority can enter into a debt instrument to basically effectuate the will of the voters. That's what's on the ballot on August 20th.
Makes sense.
Yep, that's what's on the ballot.
Okay, so you're not asking us to borrow money?
We may,
It's
there's
just
a,
a change
there is
to
a, that, the
make it-
first, yes, the change on August 20th is about the rules.
To make it easier.
I think to make it logical, I wouldn't say easier, because I don't think 4 out of 5 is easy under by any measure. And again, as you've seen, I'm not shy about going to the public and asking the voters to consider a proposition. We've done it twice in 6 months. We may do it another time before the calendar year's out. It's not easy to do that, as you can imagine. So thirdly, there's an item on today's agenda later on to consider the possibility of presenting a question to the voters to authorize a bond authorization up to $65 million. We still have to discuss that. I don't think it's by any means a foregone conclusion that it's going to be approved, but it is on the item for discussion. It may end up on a November ballot,
Yeah.
which this board agreed to limit ourselves to November ballots for such questions, given that there are issues where we possibly are encumbering the city with debt for a significant period of time.
Okay, well, I hope you'll be real clear on what the money is for and not just say it's for 99 things and maybe this will get more and we'll switch it around.
I think you've got plenty of folks that share that concern, Mr. Jacobs, on this board.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone online in public remarks?
If there's anyone online, please raise your virtual hand if you'd like to speak. I don't see anyone.
Seeing no one else, we will close public remarks at this time. We have some board and committee appointments. Madam Clerk, if you could read those quickly.
Yes. Joseph R. Corvision has been appointed by Commissioner Callier to the Planning Board for a 2-year term ending July 18, 2026, and he's replacing Sabrata Basu. I forgot to put that on there. Sabrata Basu has been appointed by Commissioner Callier to the Development Review Board for a 2-year term ending July 18, 2026, and he's replacing Lee Emerson Smith. And Wendy Green has been appointed by Commissioner Callier to the Unique Abilities Board for a 2-year term ending July 18, 2026.
Thank you. That requires no action, correct? Or does it?
No.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on the consent agenda, colleagues? Are there any items we want to pull for discussion?
I don't have any that I need to pull.
Okay.
Let me read.
Before we read them, any items we want to pull for discussion?
Give me a
Commissioner Liebman? Okay.
1 second, Mayor.
Commissioner Corey, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you can read all 4 items, and then I'll entertain a motion on items 1 through 4, please.
Okay. A resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida relating to fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, authorizing a budget transfer of $50,000 from line item 001-1770-519-1210, Public Works Office of Director, full-time salaries, with a current balance of $601 to account number 001-1200-512-4910, the city clerk's legal advertising. Item 2, a resolution of the Mayor City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida relating to fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, authorizing a budget transfer of $43,000 from line item 001-1170-519-1210, Public Works Office of Director, full-time salaries to line item number 001-1340-516-4634, Information Technology Division, subscriptions and licenses. Item 3, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, approving the purchase of an applicant tracking system solution from ADP in amount not to exceed $5,877.60. Authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into an agreement for the applicant tracking system solution. Item 4, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, approving the appointment of Justin Pointe to the Pension Board of Trustees.
Thank you. Is there a motion on items 1 through 4?
I'll move them.
There's a motion by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Corey. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll on the consent agenda, please.
Commissioner Cayenne?
Yes.
Commissioner Corey?
Yes.
Commissioner Levin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Consent passed 5-0.
Thank you. So, colleagues, with your indulgence, I'd like to take up, I think we have one applicant that's present this evening. If we can take up item 7, unless I'm missing someone else in the audience on any sort of other public hearing item. Don't think I see anyone else on any other item. So if we can take up item 7, Madam Clerk,
Yes.
if you can read that record, and then I guess, Mr. City Attorney, if you can read the appropriate warnings, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, item 7, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, approving/denying a special use application pursuant to Section 20-8.9 of the City of South Miami Land Development Code for a large-scale development project for a skilled nursing facility on approximately 0.8 acres property located at 7040 Southwest 61st Avenue and 7109 Southwest 61st Court.
Thank you. Is there, Mr. City Attorney, if you can read the disclosures, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 7 on this evening's City Commission meeting agenda is quasi-judicial in nature. The clerk has read the title of the resolution prior to the public hearing. The public hearing will include presentations by staff and the applicant and public comment. The commission may ask any questions either before or after public comment is closed. Following public comment, the commission can deliberate on the resolution. The quasi-judicial procedures require this commission to consider the evidence presented to it and base your decision on the applicable law and primarily on the evidence presented, whether by the applicant, staff, or members of the public. The staff report in the resolution provide the applicable law and criteria for approval. In this case, primarily Section 20-8.9 for large-scale approvals in the TSD district and site plan criteria in Sections 20-3.1, 20-3.3, 20-4.4, 20-4.5, and all of the TSDD regulations in Article 8 of the Land Development Code. The evidence considered must be substantial competent evidence. This means testimony or other evidence based on personal observation or relevant expert testimony that a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. It is not a popularity contest. It cannot be based solely on non-expert opinions, no matter how fervent those opinions might be. Anyone who wishes to speak on an item should be given an opportunity to speak during the public comment portion of the hearing. If you intend to provide testimony as to any of the applications considered tonight, you will be sworn in before your testimony is taken. Please know if you speak, you may be subject to cross-examination. If you refuse either to be cross-examined or to be sworn, your testimony will be considered in that context and given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the commission to direct questions on their behalf to either staff or the applicant. At this time, anyone who wishes to speak should be sworn in. I'd ask that you please stand and raise your right hand if you intend to speak. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you confirm compliance with the advertising notice requirements for these hearings?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, have any of you had any ex parte communications with the applicant or any member of the public?
No.
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a staff presentation? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'm Alex David with Calvin Giordano and Associates, and I was the consultant which reviewed this project. Again, it's for a skilled nursing facility located at 7040 Southwest 61st Avenue and 7109 61st Court. The applicant is 7040 Sunset Asset. The recommendation is approval of the special exception for this large-scale development. There are a number of conditions, 24, and they're very standard conditions except for number 12, which would require a restrictive covenant for the perpetual maintenance for the public plaza on 61st Court. So that's basically the only condition that's different from the standard ones. So just to give you a little history, this project was before the commission on December 7th, 2021. It was previously approved for the same number of beds, 180. But in that case, it was 7 floors with 1 underground level of parking. So the applicant came back with some revisions, and city staff deemed that they were substantial enough to require going back through the process, which is with the planning board and then to this board. So before you today is now a 6-story building, again, 180 beds, 1,310 square feet of retail space and 114 parking spaces. And included in this application is 18 bicycle spaces. So with this project, they're asking for 2 bonus floors. One is for developing a full frontage with street design as part of a pedestrian walkway, and the second bonus floor request is for the cross-through from adjoining streets from 61st Court to 61st Avenue.
Mr. David, can you illustrate those elements on their diagrams, just because I want to be sure I'm clear?
Which one?
The bonus elements. So is the colonnade part of the bonus element?
Am I going in the right direction? Yes. North, okay.
Whatever it's called. Yeah.
So this is I'm sorry, the frontage here and the design, the frontage is here, and then the pass-through is here.
on this side of my apologies?
It's on.
Do we have a mobile microphone for him? Yeah, I just want to give you the chance so it's in the record. You don't have it here. Use my microphone here if you like.
So, thank you. So now it's a little, okay. The design, the street frontage design, so that's part of the request, or they have to provide that for the 1 bonus floor, and then the pass-through from 61st Avenue to 61st Court. So those are the 2 requests which would allow them to have the bonus floors.
So, good question for you. Sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So there's a bonus for having a drive-through.
So he's got, so it's the Paseo element here that's up on the northern part of the site? I guess that's north, on the south end? Okay.
This is east-west.
This is east-west, yes.
Yeah,
So,
like that, yeah.
but the Paseo is on the northern end of the block of the site, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
No.
No, on the southern side? On the southern side. Thank you for Mr. Font in the audience clarifying. And the arcade, that's prescribed per our LDRs?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how, one of the 4 criteria for bonus floors.
Okay, so, I don't know, I just want to, thank you, I appreciate that. But we have an editorial mid-presentation. As we're talking about these LDR revisions that we're working on, I'm not a huge fan of forcing the arcade. I'd like to see, it makes the building feel bulkier to me on the street frontage. So that's something that we could, with staff's help, reevaluate. Ms. Cabrera, it's not my favorite architectural element in many of our buildings here in South Miami. Yes, you can.
And it's not safe. Not safe.
Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to.
No problem. Okay, so I basically described the project and the request for the two bonus floors. On your future land use map, this property is designated transit supportive land use, so it's consistent with that. And the zoning is transit supportive development district MU5. Again, this is an allowable use that the code was changed in April of 22 to allow skilled nursing facilities within this district. So again, this is a permitted use. Basically, This project also meets the requirements of, for the special exception in your code and also all other requirements. So they're good to go from a staff review standpoint. And also just to wrap this up, on June 11th of this year, 2+ months ago, the planning board recommended 6-0 in favor of this item.
Thank you. Questions, colleagues of staff? Yes, Madam Vice Mayor, recognized.
I actually have a comment and a question. Comment, this is not the first time we mentioned that we don't want the arcade. By my number, I think we're at number 3. 3 times we've mentioned this now, because they're unsightly and unsafe. Not that it has anything to do with you guys, I'm just citing what we have now, I feel, mentioned various times. And number 2, the pass-through, is that between the building and the other building, or between the building and the Masons?
It's street to street.
Yeah, but which side?
It's in the building. It's part of the building's footprint. So do you see the site plan?
Yes, but the pass-through that goes street to street, which side of the building is it on, is what I'm
It's on
thinking.
the south side.
So between them and Metro South?
Yes, you may. You're recognized, Ms. Barrero.
Good evening,
Hi.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Ines Marrero. I'm the attorney for the applicant. Offices at 701 Brickell Avenue. I am joined this evening.
Wait, sorry, I
by
had
the
questions.
architect.
Well, so
Oh,
Commissioner, Commissioner, I will bring Mr.
Okay.
David back up. I just wanted the Vice Mayor's question answered. Don't worry. Okay.
Yes, so the cross-through is east-west. It starts next to the lodge and then is parallel to the building along our property line to 61st Court.
Okay, perfect. That, I was trying to orient where that pass-through would be.
Commissioner Lieben.
Sorry, thank you. Just a question. This was formerly Cal Rosenbaum's one of Cal Rosenbaum's properties? Yes, okay. So, and sorry, I'm it's a head start in one regard because I voted for this the first time, but I'm maybe a little more gray than the rest of the commission in terms of my understanding. So I just need a little fact sheet just to bottom line me. What's changed from the original application till now?
Okay.
And then tell me the benefit to the city.
So the change is it's 1 floor lower, and so the footprint has changed. The lot coverage has
Because
increased.
so you confused me by saying 2 bonus floors, but it's actually 1
Well,
floor less.
The code requires the
Okay.
4, so they're asking for the 2 bonus floors to get them up to the 6.
So 1 less than originally proposed.
Correct.
But less open space, less green space.
Lot coverage by
more
1,600
dense.
square feet, bit less open space, 1,500 square feet of open space less. The parking is a lot, the code has changed. So initially they had, I'm sorry, the requirement was 239 and now it is 95. And actually, they're providing a little bit more parking. It was 106 previously and 114 now. But the big difference is they asked for 3 additional bonus floors previously, and now it's 2.
Okay, so it's more dense and
Yeah, a bit more lot coverage.
On a percentage basis, what's the total versus what was approved before?
I'm sorry?
On a percentage basis, what was the original lot coverage and what is it proposed to be?
The plans, I have the plans, but I mean, basically, hold on. I mean, I have to look at the plans. I have.
Yeah. I think alternate.
It's on there? It's 550. Do you remember off the top of your
I would not.
They did it for the bonus? That was part of the original.
Mr. David, while we're working on that answer, I think I hear some murmurings from my colleagues, questions regarding why we've incorporated a paseo here. Can you just help us understand the options for achieving bonuses under the district.
Back then.
So, in the background, maybe if you could elaborate on why this particular element was incorporated. Colleagues, I heard that question on both sides, so I figured.
Yes, so I don't know where to start. I guess I'll start with, through the chair, Mr. Mayor, to Commissioner Leisman's question. Why has the green space been reduced? Is because the way that we achieved the third bonus floor with the previous project was that we needed to provide a bigger public area, a plaza. It's in the code. That was one of the ways to achieve the bonus. So the story of the project is that it got approved under a previous code. We had to come before this commission and obtain a parking variance. The code was amended. And when we went to do our design, it turned out that we had some, besides, trying to make the project more economically efficient and whatnot, we ran into an issue of an encroachment with the lodge. Their roof somewhat encroaches on our property. We reached out to them and, we have a cordial relationship with them and had several communications, but they were not going to touch their building. It's an old building. They use it. They meet there and they say, you guys go solve it on your project. So we had to go back to the drawing board, redesign our project. And by the time we came back to the city with our revisions, your code does not provide a minor modification criteria. It does, but we exceeded that. So we had to file for a new approval. So what is before you is now essentially the same building, except now we have one less floor, and we don't need a parking variance. It's the same number of beds, same architect. Javier Font is here to go through those. Same intensity, same traffic impacts, arguably less because there's less cars. The reason we have those design criteria is because to achieve those 2 additional bonus floors, we need to, number one, is to develop a full frontage with the street design as part of the pedestrian walkway system. So that's 61st Avenue with the arcade. We have to develop it, have active frontage, so there's retail facing that street, which will make it safer, right? Eyes on the street if you have active, ground floor retail. But also, we have to put uses on that first floor, and we have to provide the arcade because it's also a design requirement of your code. The second requirement to achieve that second bonus floor was to include a cross-through from an adjoining street to a public open space as part of the pedestrian walkway system on the owner's property. And that is that, path that connects 61st Court to 61st Avenue. And in fact, in this area, this property, while it's, first of all, very important, this is going to be a for-profit operation owned by a for-profit company. And they will go and get their licenses and whatnot. Not affiliated to a Larkin, but it's going to be located next to 2 hospitals, right? And right now, 2 hospital facilities. The staff, instead of having to walk around the block, they will be able to connect from the cancer center to the hospital through our property because it'll be an open area. So it creates that pedestrian, and seating, that pedestrian connectivity, and also from the metro station. It's part of our project. We want it to be safe. We had the same conversation actually when the project was before the planning board and the commission. In its first iteration, concerns about safety, and it's a concern for us as the operator. And it is our responsibility that it's safe, not only for the public but for our staff and our visitors. I don't know if that is responsive to your question. So the use is permitted. We are here because the project exceeds 40,000 square feet, so your code requires that we get a large-scale development approval, and then we'll do a development agreement like we've done with all these other big projects that have come before you. And we are in agreement with all of the conditions of the approval. And, there's other differences in the project that make it better for the community. For example, the massing of the building before was very solid, and some of the interior rooms did not have windows. And so we've now created a I-shaped corridor of the core, where all the rooms will have windows. And so a lot of other benefits to the actual programming in the facility, to this design.
Yes, Commissioner Lieben, you're
So-
recognized.
So thank you. Three quick things. For the commission, went from 88% based on my colleagues' math, from 88% to lot coverage to 93%. It's one item. Second, well, actually, four items. Second, I'm going to support it. Third, I don't know if, the retail may not do well now, but there's potentially a lot of residential coming down the pike, at least it's approved, and other interest in projects in the immediate area. And the last thing is, I just wanted to include a condition, if it's amenable to you, that the pass-through is open to the public.
Yes, I believe it has to be.
It has to be.
Okay.
Under the code, yes. Yes, we agree to that.
Okay, make it a condition. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Is it a comment or question? It's a question? You're recognized, please. Go ahead.
I understand the pass-through element. I don't think it's quite safe, but I understand. But I wonder if there can be hours where that is closed. That certainly cannot be safe late at night. That neighborhood has had issues with homeless people sleeping in the parking lots, homeless people all over the place there. And so I think that in the interest of them as owners of the building, we may want to have hours where those gates are open and hours when they're closed, just from a safety perspective. If it was up to me, I would say don't have it, because I think we're inviting trouble.
I think we can limit it to during business hours, or during daylight hours, or during some limitation. It's up to this board, this commission,
To the mayor.
what they'd like to do.
Same question
So
for the
we
attorney.
will have security, and it's a 24-hour facility. Remember, there's staff 24 hours a day, unlike an office that closes down and it's empty. We have residents, not residents, patients, but they're there 24 hours, and the staff, we have 3 shifts coming in and out. So we will ensure that it is safe.
I'm worried about your safety, not safety of somebody else.
Well,
Your
but the-
safety
but
in
the
your
safety
building.
Well, let's-
of everybody, of the
Yeah.
community, including the staff and the visitors and everybody in that area. And always, activation improves safety. Once there's
So,
people there.
Can I ask a question
it's
about that
inherently-
specifically? Because I'm looking at the facade, and maybe I'm not understanding it. And again, admittedly, have not studied this application with any real rigor. But looking at the elevation, there seem to be on the west elevation roll-up garage doors, which I'm assuming is more or less where your exit drive is, correct? No?
Can we have,
And
Mr. Font?
so I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to understand,
yes.
I want to understand factually a couple
Your-
things.
That was added because your code requires loading, so we needed to incorporate a loading berth to service the facility. And so the rolling door, as I recall, is for the loading berth.
Okay.
The entrance is coming to the south, closer to,
Okay, so I just want to, I'm trying to understand that. So the loading door that's shown on the west elevation is for and I guess I'm just turning around with the site plan I am. That explains it. So the loading door is not co-located near the drive aisle or the paseo, correct? So the loading door is in the upper left corner? Okay, got it, okay.
North side.
The drive aisle condition is open, so it's,
Hi, Javier Font, Bear Font Partners, 4533 Ponce de Leon Boulevard.
Yeah.
Obviously, architects for the project. So, this would be our drive, and we put our main lobby entrance right at the drive. It's
Sure.
a one-way street. So anybody who comes into the facility to go park or to drop somebody off has to come through here, and it's right off our main lobby, and obviously we have 24-hour service, as was mentioned. So the idea is, this is a vehicular drive. You can come through, park. You've got an ambulance space and a couple of handicap parking spaces, and then that sort of runs parallel with our paseo. So we've got a nice outdoor area for, patients who can't come down and go outside to come sit, or maybe our staff to come have lunch. So the idea is that this is all our pedestrian and vehicular traffic here, and everybody who comes in sort of walks or drives by the front door of the facility.
And access on the speed ramp to the garage, is that gate secured or is that open? Or,
It'll probably be open.
okay,
Our guests will also be using that same ramp, right? And then the loading doors that you're looking at are up here. They're sort of the furthest away from that entrance as possible.
on the arcades, I'm seeing a dimension of, it looks like 14 feet in height and roughly 9 feet in width or depth. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9 feet plus another foot.
Okay.
So,
The level above it, is it activated on both sides with uses?
yes, so
Okay.
one of the things that we did in the building is that the parking is 100% screened, right? So if you go to the second floor, you've got,
Let me ask you this question again, 'cause I'm trying to understand the benefit to us of authorizing these arcades in the code. I'm going to speculate one of the benefits for the applicant to take advantage of that bonus is that it makes sure, in this case, your parking footprint very rational, right? Very efficient, even with the liner uses.
so one of the difficult aspects of this project was the parking.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why we came back is we were having a very tough time making the numbers work with the basement parking. So we brought the parking up. We did line all the floors, so there's no parking visible from any street front on this. But it was very challenging.
Let's assume the effect of removing the arcade would narrow your parking would help?
Yeah, because you're either going to have a
Why
walkway.
don't you get on the microphone a second? Yeah, apologies.
Sorry, you're either going to have an arcade or a walkway, right? So your ground floor is going to come in no matter what, because you want to have a pedestrian area there. We're not the biggest fans of arcades either, but it is required by the code, and if we do it, we get a bonus. So obviously.
So, but if it was not available, I'm just kind of asking you, Javi, what would be the effect on the design? So we understand what the impact of that would be on a project like this. So if there was no arcade bonus available to you.
Correct.
And you had to rework the parking, I'm assuming your parking footprint would get narrower, or you would move the usable square footage to an upper floor?
So on the ground floor, we would probably leave some pedestrian area, as I said.
Correct.
The second floor, we would probably cantilever over that in order to get as big a footprint as possible. So the arcade does help you with that. It pushes you to the property line, right? It recesses you on the ground floor, so it makes it a little more difficult on the ground floor, but then when you build over it on the upper levels, it makes it a little bit easier. The issue with the arcade is just that when you get these, the code requires a continuous arcade, which means my entire front property line, right? Which we argued on this project is, we've got 2 street fronts, we're giving you 2 full arcades, you should give us 2 floors, because we're doing it twice, right?
Mhm.
But obviously, the staff didn't agree with that. But if you could do 50% of your frontage as an arcade and 50% a little more open with some canopies, or maybe push the building back, I think it would create a lot more diversity in your architecture. Right? The problem that you require 100% arcade is what kills a lot of these buildings, and it kills the perception off the street. Thank you so much. So.
Can you explain the Paseo condition is open? There's no shear wall. What's
No,
the rationale for doing that, as opposed to actually having a hard wall on the southern property line there?
Well, the idea is that there's a building adjacent to us anyway, so
Okay.
the idea is to landscape it as well as possible and to keep it as open as possible, right? The more view we can have into that Paseo, the better, right? We want to keep it, eyes on the street, and that's sort of why we've done the retail down here, why we've done the offices right above that, and we've done, our lobby and our ground floor offices here, and then offices on the second floor on this side. We want to make sure that a lot of people are watching who's coming, who's going, and keeping the place safe.
And just as staff, can you explain to me how the Paseo bonus works in this case, and the open plaza requirement, and what the minimum requirements are for that plaza?
We're no longer asking for the open plaza requirement.
Okay.
Since we brought the building down a floor, that requirement is not necessary.
Got
So,
it. Okay. So the Paseo bonus, how does that work? It's just providing the connected path?
I'm going to read out of the code.
Okay.
So maybe, I'm hoping that helps. It's in the report. So for developing cross-throughs from an adjoining street to a public open space as part of the public pedestrian walk system.
So can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm sorry?
Can you repeat that one more time? My apologies.
Okay, for developing cross-throughs from an adjoining street to a public open space as part of the public pedestrian walkway system on owner's property, maintenance required in section 20-8.15. That statement allows them to go and ask for the bonus, one additional floor.
Okay, and to council, what is the term open public plaza space defined, or?
There's no separate definition for that space. Let's see.
Well,
sorry. Plaza open to the public means a privately owned parcel of land, but that's for a plaza, as opposed to this cross-through.
Yeah, but the cross-through has to connect, the way I heard that is it's got to connect from a street to a publicly open plaza, correct?
Correct, but in
Hold on.
this.
No. Please repeat the standard one more time, because
Okay.
there's a lot of sidebar conversations
Right.
happening up
So
here.
for developing cross-throughs from an adjoining street to a public open space as part of the public pedestrian walk system and on owner's
Okay, but
property.
so pause right there. If we had a condition that it was only connecting street to street, it would not satisfy the bonus criteria.
Well, in this bonus in this statement, there is no size requirement. There is another bonus,
Okay.
that allows, you can add another floor if you provide a public plaza, a minimum of 5,000 square feet. That's
Okay.
another bonus.
Understood.
You have 4 bonus allowances in your code. So they're requesting the cross-through and the public open space, which doesn't have a minimum requirement.
And are there any design standards for it? And again, I'll get to why I'm asking all these questions here very quickly. I don't want to make you guys nervous over there, okay? But anyhow. Are there any design criteria associated with that public open space? No. Okay. So again, I'm not, my intention is to vote for this project because it was approved once before. But I think I wanted to highlight those issues because I think this standard and these bonuses are woefully deficient in terms of articulating the kind of public spaces that we want and should be getting for giving people this additional floor area. And so to staff, what I would ask is that we kind of prioritize working on this and this arcade requirement. I don't know that we're necessarily creating the best urban condition here. Again, no offense to the architect, that you're doing rationally. I think this works really well for the project. I just wonder if on the public side whether it works really well for the city. And so, I just want to make sure that we put a focus on revisiting these standards a little bit more carefully. Again, I just looking at the site plan, I'm not enamored with the idea that the public open space or the public open plaza, the feature element is, the generator and/or a utility element really does not kind of really speak to me as a space of inspiration. Nor does it necessarily want to invite me to walk through that expanse, since it's going to look pretty much like a dead space. And again, I don't mean that as a criticism of the architect who I'm a fan of. So this is really our fault for not articulating a better standard. And so for future projects, I just want to make sure that we're a bit more robust in what we require.
Right, and I have to agree with you. I mean, these standards have been in place for quite a while, and I've heard as a consultant here that there are issues with these, and they could always be tweaked to whatever to, get you to where you really want to be.
Yeah, and for staff, if you can communicate, I think this board's, I don't want to speak for all of us. If you disagree, please, preferences to the planning board. Certainly, if I have a chance to speak to some of our, it's surprising to me that our appointees on those boards aren't raising these same issues, because I would expect that they would be highlighting some of these things to us as well. But I think that we just need to be a bit more rigorous in demanding a better design execution in exchange for these benefits. But again, we're talking about a project that has been vetted now twice, and in fairness to the applicant, I don't think it's fair to hold them up on this any longer. Yeah. Mr. Kaya, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry.
From a design requirements perspective, from a landscape plan, I know it's not really part of this particular process, or is that pretty much ironed out on landscape plan?
I could start from our side. The applicant submitted a landscape plan. As part of Calvin Giordano's review, we have a landscape architect reviewing those, the plans. And I know there was some back and forth, and then both landscape architects came to an agreement, and my landscape architect's comments were satisfied.
Which were?
I have in my computer, which is in my car. Do you have? Okay. And also, as part of this, there's payment for tree mitigation too. So there were some fees generated by the removal of trees. So the applicant has to provide certain canopy.
While you're looking that up, can you talk about what you have currently on the plan from a landscape plan? What tree structures you have there on both avenues there? So that site plan is not reflective with the trees there?
It's in the big plan, but
That's the other problem with the arcade that we have is that it removes the ability for us to have landscaping.
You know, I think, again, just since we have a couple seconds here, I think part of the feedback we've gotten from folks as they see buildings coming up is that they're not very tall, but they appear very massive. And I think that's one of the concerns I think probably Commissioner Liebman was alluding to with the increase in the lot coverage. It leaves very little space for light and air to get to the ground. I think, you know, generally, having worked with these folks now for the better part of a year and a half, I think we'd like to see the building footprint shrink. So to staff, as we're looking at our standards through this rewrite, you know, if we can kind of cap the maximum lot coverage, something well below 90%, I think would be the preference of this board. And, you know, frankly, a little bit more height and opening light and air on the ground here. I think we appreciate taking the building down a story, but I'd rather see the building not look quite as imposing on the street, look a little slimmer, as opposed to what we've been getting. And it's not just this building, it's just the type of architecture we're seeing across the city generally. Fair comment?
Yes, I concur. That's
100%.
I prefer higher with less density.
And if I could be so bold, maybe that's one of your bonuses, right? We're stuck with 4 bonuses here, and your bonuses are very strict. And a lot of times, they force us into a design that we would not want to do. But if you said, okay, the maximum FAR or maximum lot coverage is 90%, but if you go to 85, we'll get you an extra floor. That would definitely benefit the architect, and I think would benefit the city as well. So,
yeah.
we're happy to sit with staff and give them our opinion on.
We would appreciate that.
What other bonuses you might look at that would.
just since I'm a consultant in many cities, every code is different, but we could actually help the city look at some other codes possibly to get some ideas to get you where you want to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Further questions or comments? Yes, Mr. City Attorney, you had something you wanted to add?
Sure, just two small things. Number one, the TSDD regulations are being
Revised.
rehauled.
Correct.
So I'm communicating all of your comments to that effort. And the second one is just a brief cleanup. The third whereas clause, which describes the application requirements, the 32,700 square foot skilled nursing facility, that's an error. That's actually the lot coverage. It should actually state the overall lot coverage, which is, I'm sorry, the overall size is 177,432. So that should be corrected.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Further questions or comments, colleagues?
Just from a process perspective, this, if approved, goes over to the ERPB or the Design Review Board? Or is this final already?
This is final. This is the new process that you guys. Oh no, you guys submitted before. You guys submitted before.
This project was submitted before when the ERPB was in place.
So it already went. It already went.
It has not been reviewed by the DRB or ERPB.
Okay, it will have to go to the DRB.
That's what I was asking.
DRB after, yeah.
It still has to go through them.
Yeah, because it was submitted prior to the change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Sorry, I believe this was a public hearing.
Oh, it was a public hearing, yes, you're right, it is a public hearing. This is a public hearing. If any member of the public would like to speak on item 7, which is an application to approve or deny a special exception for a large-scale development project for a skilled nursing facility, please come forward at this time. Is there
Anyone
anyone,
online, raise your virtual hand.
seeing no one coming forward in the chamber? Madam Clerk, there's no one online?
No.
Okay, we'll consider the public hearing closed. Is there a motion on the part of anyone on the board?
I move the item.
I'll second.
Okay, so a motion by Commissioner Liebman and a second by the Vice Mayor. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Corey,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Can we quickly read item 6 into the record? No, actually, that's actually deferred until further notice. My apologies. Just listed there. If we can read item 8, please.
Item 8, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, approving the purchase of traffic analytics software in an amount not to exceed $24,000 per year, $19,500 in the first year from Urban STK, utilizing the terms and conditions of the competitively bid Miami Gardens contract invitation to bid number 22-23-023, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a multi-year agreement with Urban SDK relating to the same.
Mr. Manager, is there anything you'd like to add for the record by way of introduction?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Hatfield had identified this particular resource as a means to assist the police department and public works. Basically, the information garnered from this software, which becomes real-time, pretty much updated on a weekly basis, draws down data from smart technology, phones, vehicles, and then that aggregation of that information is provided, giving us the ability to take a look at real-time as it relates to traffic counts, speed. So we saw it as a way, two operational ways. One, the department can use it as a tool to identify areas of hotspots to deploy traffic unit and do some details. Secondly, from a public works standpoint, identify problem areas. And really lastly, and more the motivation, we embark upon traffic studies from time to time, of which has a cost, and we really move forward in an uninformed way because we don't really know what the outcome may be. Our intent would be that now we have this data that we can overlay with the county's traffic standards, and then do a predetermination of what a traffic study would generate, what it would tell us. And there will be cases, and we tried it with a gentleman that spoke here regarding traffic in his neighborhood, and we used it, asked the consultant to take a look at that, and our findings were that the speed were not excessive, but yes, traffic counts were above average in the area. So we feel that we may cost avoidance of traffic studies when we have this data ahead of time, and therefore we go like, we know what the outcome is going to be, let's not spend the money. I know the Vice Mayor, you had asked me about, hey, traditionally, what do we spend on a traffic study? And one particular year, in year 19, roughly $58,000. More recent history, we don't have as many because the city embarked on a big undertaking 2021 to do a citywide traffic study, and that's resulted in these traffic circles. So we feel we're going to be able to avoid certain traffic study costs, which will eventually pretty much pay itself for this software. We also got authorization from PTP to use PTP funds. In this case, the item before you shares the first year with some police funds and PTP funds. Is our intent to be able to fully pay for it out of PTP funds, given the authorization, because it is analyzing traffic and traffic data.
Okay, any questions of the manager?
This item is a piggyback contract out of Miami Gardens.
Okay. Questions of the manager? Okay, seeing none,
Open a public.
is there a motion? Oh, public comment, I'm sorry, this is a public hearing on item 8. If anyone would like to speak to item 8, please come forward at this time.
Anyone on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand.
Some
So, no, my apologies, sir. We had opened the public hearing. I must have not articulated that clearly enough. And no, it's not abutting a residential neighborhood. It's, okay. Glad that it was resolved favorably. Exactly. Thank you. Well, on item 8, is there anyone who'd like to speak to item 8 on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing no one in the audience and no one online, Madam Clerk will close the public hearing. Colleagues, is there a motion on item 8, please?
I move the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lieben, a second by Commissioner Corey. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner Lieben?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish?
Yes.
Commissioner Corey?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaye?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Is there anyone in the audience who's here on a particular item we'd like to take up? We have the millage item, and we also have a number of ballot items that are on tonight's agenda. Mr. Ward or Mr. Jacobs, if you want to speak on any of those items, I'd happily take those up first. Okay? So let's just move in the regular order then. If we can take up item 5, please.
Item 5, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, declaring a required by Section 200.065 Florida statutes, the city proposed millage rate, rollback rate computed pursuant to Section 200-065, Parent 1 Florida statutes, and a date, time, and place of which the first and second public budget hearings will be held to consider the proposed millage rate and a tentative budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, directing the city manager and the city clerk to transmit and file this resolution with the Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we actually ask the manager to give us his recommendation, is there, can you announce the dates that we are considering for the public hearings on the budget?
September 3rd and September 17th at 5:01.
Okay, September 3rd and September 17th. Thank you. Mr. Manager,
Yes, sir. Mayor, the item that's before you brings a recommendation forward to keep the current millage of FY fiscal year -- in the proposed budget for FY '25 at the 3.950 rate, and that's the recommendation that's before you. We've shared some information there as it relates to rollback rate, and obviously we have to share that information. But in this case, we're recommending to keep the millage rate flat according to last year's, or current year's fiscal year.
colleagues, questions, comments?
Okay.
Commissioner Lee,
Comment,
recognized.
and I'm sorry, I'm doing this a lot lately, but again, just today in the, when I say doing a lot, just referring to my time on the dais, but today we had the budget meeting at 10 o'clock, and we saw a slide that, I'm saying much, but made me proud to see how many tax reductions we've had, and I'm proud to say I've championed all of them. I believe there were 4. Now, today, I'm also proud to say I'm very happy with where we are, and it's in the best interest of the city, and my opinion, staff's opinion, I believe this commission's opinion, to leave the millage rate where we are. One thing I'll just remind the commission is I passed another ordinance. The interest was, I believe, in the best interest of the city, but also to educate the commission at the time, not an ordinance, a resolution to lower taxes. And a resolution is not binding, and traditionally resolutions expire after a year anyway. But that was after the completion of Sunset Place. And we have the numbers to substantiate this. We could lower taxes by 10%. But no, I just wanted to share that. I was very proud to see that that chart today, and I think it's in the best interest of the city, and I think we're in a good place to hold the millage steady.
And again, just so we're clear, procedurally, all we're doing is setting the maximum. We still retain the flexibility to go below this number should we decide on September 3rd, correct?
That's
So,
correct.
Just wanted to clarify that for the record. So, any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion on item, oh, sorry, no, it's not a public hearing item. Is there a motion on item 5?
I'll move the motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Kaya, a second by the Vice Mayor. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner Kaye?
Yes.
Commissioner Corey?
Yes.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes, I just want to announce that number is 3.95.
3.95, that's
we
correct.
do that,
Yeah.
so.
Vice Mayor Bonish?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Thank you. If you can read item 9, please.
Item 9, A resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, relating to the 2024 general election for the Mayor and City Commissioners Group 2 and 3, to be held on November 5th, 2024, establishing qualifying dates for the city's general election on November 5th, 2024, providing for the city clerk to utilize the services of Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections for the general election, including the issuance of the appropriate ballot and adherence to election procedures in accordance with applicable and state law.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk or City Attorney, do you want to explain what this resolution will effectuate?
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Our charter requires in Article 5, Section 5, that we establish procedures for elections, and so does our code in Section 9.5, and particularly that we establish qualifying dates for the upcoming election on November 5th. So this resolution essentially does that, establishes the qualifying dates and follows the county and state procedures for the elections.
Okay. Colleagues, any questions? I'm just curious about something. Why, it's a little bit odd that we have so late in the calendar year would be establishing the qualifying date. Is that typical for most municipalities?
I don't know that there's any specific requirement that it be done within a certain amount of time.
It's in a charter, a certain amount of time that we have to do the qualifying.
And again, just for the public, if we can just articulate those dates.
August 12th through the 22nd.
August 12th to the 22nd, okay. Okay, is there a motion?
That's a public hearing.
Oh, it's a public hearing item.
Anyone online, please raise your virtual hand. No.
Or if there's anyone in the chamber, please come forward at this time on item 9. Seeing no one online or in the chamber, we will close the public hearing. Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kaye and a second by the Vice Mayor. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Corey,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Great, if you can read item 10, please.
Item 10, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, calling a special election to be held on November 5th, 2024, for the purpose of submitting to the electorate a proposed amendment to subsection H of Section 5, powers and duties of Article 3, City Manager of the City Charter as presented in a ballot question to allow the Commission to set purchasing limitations by ordinance for the city purchases of goods and services, providing for requisite ballot language and charter amendment text for submission to the electorate, providing for the city clerk to utilize the service of Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections for the special election.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, this is an oldie but a goodie that keeps coming back. It would revise out of the charter the $5,000 procurement threshold and give us the discretion to set, give this commission or future commissions the ability to kind of set the threshold in our code as opposed to the charter. I think that fairly summarizes the effect of the ballot item. Are there any questions or comments, colleagues?
I'd like to support.
I think the manager, yes, for the record, he and his skinny microphone support this, this possible change. I know, I just noticed. This is a public hearing item. If there's anyone in the chamber or online who'd like to address this commission with respect to item 10 and the proposed change, please come forward. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Colleagues, is there a motion on item 10?
I think that's my microphone because that's the unfiltered one.
Oh, gosh.
I'll move
So,
it.
second.
We have a motion by the Vice Mayor, a second by Commissioner Liebman. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Corey,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish.
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Thank you. If you can read item 11, please.
Item 11, a resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, calling for a special election for the City of South Miami to be held on November 5th, 2024, concurrent with the general election for the purpose of submitting to the electorate a bond referendum regarding the issuance of general obligation bonds by the City of South Miami in amount not to exceed $65 million for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, reconstructing, improving, and equipping various capital improvements, real property and infrastructure for parks and recreation, public works, and public safety, providing for publication of notice of such referendum, providing requisite ballot language for submission to the electorate, providing for the city clerk to utilize the services of Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections for the special election.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager, do you want to kind of tee this up for us?
Yes, Mayor. Obviously, what's before you is a recommendation for voters to weigh in on the ability of a city to pursue a bond program. You're not necessarily approving projects necessarily today, but you're giving that opportunity to the voters to chime in. We did share, given that we've had this discussion for a bit, and that I was asked to provide some recommendation based on the collective feedback. So I shared a draft of some projects, but again, I want to make the distinction that the item itself is not approval of projects, but I thought that it was germane to share things that would be considered. These items, in my opinion, match and mirror the language of which the voters will see, which is either acquiring, constructing, reconstructing, improving, or equipping within recreation, public works, infrastructure, public safety. So we feel that these would mirror that. So in the event that at a later date, this conversation furthers as it relates to more specificity, these could be some projects that this commission would consider. Again, this would not be before the voters necessarily as a result of this item if it passes. But the mayor had asked for this to be brought to some conclusion as it relates to what kind of projects we may and/or purchases. So we brought this forward for your consideration as well in your deliberations.
Colleagues, questions or comments to the manager?
Yeah, questions.
Commissioner Kaya, you recognize.
Oh, sorry, man.
It's all right, sir.
So just for the public, can we speak about if this bond is actually approved and it goes through, the form of payment, once we execute on a particular project on a list, if we can speak to the repayment process of said bond, we take out the funds, execute on the project, and the repayment or the loan payment that we might need to do. Worst case scenarios, where does that come from? Best case scenarios, where does that come from? So we can talk to the public about that.
When you say where does that come from, you're saying what funding sources match
what
to
funding
that
sources,
to
yeah.
that debt?
Yeah.
Well, this would be a general governmental purpose and general fund issuance, and so it'd be supported by general funds. So that would be the funding source. And I know we also, we have our public, I see Sergio's on so if he's also ready to share, our financial advisor is on, Mr. Masvidal as well. So in the event that you want some further technical questions, he may be able to share his comments since he's been reviewing this for us as well.
But to summarize, essentially, general revenue would be pledged to
General fund
essentially
revenue.
pay back and defease the bonds.
But let's speak about worst case scenario, just so it's clear to the public. Worst case scenario, the general fund cannot fund something after we pay. We can't repay.
Well, I think just to that point, I want to give the conversation some context. What this does is authorize our ability to go to market. Doesn't do anything else, right? It just gives us the ability to at some point issue the debt before, if we issue it in, again, issue all $65 million, if that's what we decide to approve, it would require a 25% tax increase. I don't think anybody on this board would be particularly inclined to want to vote for a millage increase of that scale. So I think if this is approved, there would have to be some conversation about how much we could issue at any point in time, so that it would not be an inordinate burden or a burden at all on taxpayers beyond what they're carrying today. So that's, again, I want to be clear. My ambition with this is to, one, give us the flexibility to attract other people's money, right, by showing this as possible available future match. Number two, give us a chance to kind of manage our cash flow a little bit better and keep more cash on hand and use borrowing strategically to kind of expand our ability to exercise projects. And so, this is not, in my expectation, certainly, I would not be expecting us to go to market if this were approved in November in the early part of 2025 or any part of 2025 to draw down on this authorization in any substantial way, because it would require us to substantially increase taxes, unless there's some unexpected windfall that should befall us here in the next fiscal year.
Yeah. So, Mayor, if I could add, normally programmatically here or any other community, we would work with our financial advisor as to when some of these things may be needed and when realistically they may come online. Some would be a vertical type of project where it require, some design and permitting. And so, it's a 30-year window usually of a bond program, and the tranches of issuance doesn't happen necessarily. I mean, we could, but normally you don't see that all at once. You see that over the history and the life of, based on the program and when things are needed, right? So a lot of work to do as to when these things would populate. We would need some sort of critical path and timeline, and then financial advisor along with bond counsel would work to package this together in the most advantageous way.
I think one other benefit of possibly doing this is that for projects that we are trying to work to move into design and implementation, once this authorization is in place, maybe Mr. Masvidal can speak to this. I believe we could basically provide, is it a TEFRA notice, or what's the term of art that would basically allow us to begin to, items in our capital plan that could be eligible for bond funding, begin to recoup some of those design costs after the date that notice is adopted by the commission. So, again, we could begin to spend capital money out of our pay-as-you-go model and then refund that money through the bond issuance. So there's the ability to kind of put more money to work that way as well. So I don't know, Mr. Masvidal, if you can kind of give us a sense of what happens procedurally should this be adopted, and then if there is a debt authorization, a tranche that's approved, how much time we have to spend dollars, so we can give the commission a sense of what the timing of a bond program could look like.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you all hear me okay?
We all can.
Great, thank you. I had trouble turning on my video there, but it seems to be sorted out. So thanks for having me again, Sergio Masvidal, PFM Financial Advisors. To answer your question, so Mr. Mayor, I think you were alluding to the intent resolution, or what's called the reimbursement resolution. Soft costs, you can always reimburse yourself for. So engineering design costs, those are reimbursable without any period of time, or for any period of time. Really, the reimbursement resolution would cover any hard costs that you might undergo before the bonds are actually issued. So that would be kind of one of the first steps. Well, let's even back up from there. The resolution before you would put this in front of, this is basically allowing you to put a referendum in front of the voters. If they approve the general obligation referendum, then we would go to something called bond validation, validating that the bonds were properly authorized and that you could legally issue those bonds. That takes about 3 months after the referendum is approved. So you're really looking at an issuance of bonds at earliest, I would say, in spring of 2025. That's more than likely the timing. And again, that's all assumes that you're ready to go with kind of shovel-ready projects. One of the IRS requirements on bond issuances is that projects you must have a reasonable expectation that you will spend the bond proceeds within 3 years from issuance of the bonds. So really, the time that it takes us to ready the bonds, we could be ready as early as spring 2025. If in that time you were to prepare engineering, design, and had projects ready to go, we could issue the bonds at that point. Now, I think the manager mentioned you would not, very likely that you would issue these bonds in multiple tranches, not the full amount in one tranche, again, to meet that spend down requirement. So you're probably looking at bonds that are issued over, call it 2 or 3, maybe even 4 separate series of issuances. And that's how the process would play out. So each time that a bond was going to be issued, you would have something called a supplemental resolution that would come back before this commission to approve the projects being funded with that specific series of bonds, the amount that the bonds were to be issued in, and as well as a not to exceed interest cost allowance. I think there was one other question maybe that I'll address right now by Commissioner Kaya as far as the repayment stream. So we're talking about general obligation bonds, so it's really a full faith and credit of the city. You can use any source of revenue you have available to you to repay these bonds. So whether that's non-ad valorem revenues or ad valorem revenues. Certainly in a worst case scenario, I think you were alluding to, you would implement the ad valorem or levy a millage in order to pay the debt service. Now, of course, to the extent you receive grants for projects or grants, revenue grants, those could offset either the amount of bonds that you issue or the amount of millage that you would have to levy. Pause there and see if there's more questions or comments.
Further questions, colleagues? Okay. Madam Vice Mayor recognized. Mr. Rivero, I think you're going to be on the hot seat here.
Yes. I recall when we had a conversation, you actually put it up during one of our meetings and gave us different levels of borrowing. So I'm imagining that our mayor got 65 million from that chart that was discussed. I'm wondering if you could give us an idea of what we could comfortably manage, what's challenging and what's not doable, which is, if I'm not mistaken, what you had on that chart at that point.
What's great about a GOB, it's managed by the tax that we collect in ad valorem. In other words, when they're voting in the GOB, and Sergio, by all means, jump in here, they're basically authorizing that expend or that loan amount and to tax themselves, in essence, to pay off that debt. So it doesn't put a strain. If it was a revenue bond or a loan, that's a different, because that debt service is covered with revenues that is non-ad valorem. That's a different threshold. So there is no, I don't know how to answer, there's no real comfortable or uncomfortable when it comes to a general obligation bond. A $65 million we can handle, but it's not, because it's gonna be able to be taxed.
Okay, and if you're looking at, if we're playing the guessing game, we're looking at things that are coming online between now and the next 5 years, right? I think it would be safe to say Sunset Place 5-year project. What? Go.
I want to be very clear, we will not receive, best case scenario, best case, not conservative, the city will not receive that ad valorem tax revenue in 5 years. You're looking at minimum 7, 8 years.
The truth is, I haven't seen any plans on it. I'm assuming they're gonna do this on stages. It's not gonna be developed. This is an assumption on my part because I just haven't seen anything.
But walk to a 5-year estimated completion, won't receive taxes till the following year, those taxes won't be due till the following year. So it's +2. Am I wrong?
Right, the tax comes on the following year after you issue the CO.
And then you pay it the following year, so it's +2 till the city receives it.
In November of that following year, the tail end of that calendar year, yes.
Vice Mayor, if I can, the exercise that we're discussing now, which is obviously on point, is part and parcel having a conversation with, our financial advisor and kind of forecasting capacity and when we need things. And so that's part of the exercise, because we want to understand, when we have the ability to take on what and how much, right? So it's not sort of blind, we take a look at that and understand what capacity. For example, we talked earlier today about debt that's being retired. So we may say, well, we're going to drop $700,000 in debt service payments. That's an ability to break even, if you will, if we fill that in with, new debt. So it is informed by that dialogue and advice, and the FA will do,
So
analysis
just
for
to
us.
build on that example, right, 2026, that first loan is paid off, frees up $600,000 of capacity. That's roughly $10 million, I think we talked about during the break, of debt that we could then service with that money.
And to add to that, Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
that will not go back down further to the mill rate that we're
That would not,
executing at
that
mill rate.
that would not impact, that would not require us to increase the
I
millage
just want to
rate.
make sure it's clear.
No, exactly. So again, to
I know Sergio said
2026, we have capacity that comes online. We could take out the first $10 million without having to wait for future revenues, right? I think, look, the reason I'm presenting this now, we've, had a chance to talk at various meetings about this, is that I think, we are either going to begin to set a direction about how future revenues are going to be spent, or they're going to be spent like government typically operates, which is on whatever is the immediate issue of the day. And I want to make sure that we are identifying projects that as revenues come online, we are directing revenues to things that residents can touch, feel, and see, right? And that will actually benefit their quality of life directly. Admittedly, this is probably a year or two earlier in terms of our project's history, but again, the authorization does not expire. And I'd rather take advantage of the moment and go to market and say, this is what we'd like to do, looking 10 years down the line, than just talking about the immediate opportunity. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I just want to finish my
No,
my
please, go
thought,
ahead.
because where I was trying to get with Alfredo is, what is a point of comfort? Okay, because if we're going out to the voter, and I played this game at my house. If I ask you for $20, you'll give me $20. If I ask you for $40, you'll give me $40. When I ask you for $75, you're just going to start thinking about it, right? So when I see $65 million, it's a point of pain. Because somewhere in my mind, and real or imagined, and you know what? There's a reason that they sell houses for $499,995 because it's not $500,000, right? So you can play that game with yourself mentally. What number do we feel is a comfortable number? Because I don't want to go out to a voter with $65 million and then not have an answer, and they will ask, how'd you get to $65 million? Did you pull it out of a hat? Did you have a conversation? Did you play with friends and come up with the number? I mean, we need to have like a real, something we can, like you said, to touch, see, feel, whatever, of a reason why we're going for $65 million versus $34 million or $27 million.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Corey, did you want to add something to this conversation?
Well, yeah, if I actually, Alfredo, were you going to answer that question from her? Because I have a follow-up. I have a follow-up for you that's connected to
I think he's trying to answer by saying
Let me chime
that-
in a little bit on
yeah,
that, because it's obviously a proper concern. But again, it's a 30-year bond program of which, you know, the needs don't necessarily all fall in year one or year two. So you spread this over time, and part of that exercise is understanding the influence of that debt service or adding the debt service and your capacity, right? And that's how we lean on the financial advisor to run these models for us. So it'll be informed by our capacity based on some analysis, right? And so 65 million right now would require some extraordinary effort on our part. Is it doable? Yes, but it would trigger some things that probably we don't want to do from a millage standpoint. But we know that that's not realistic, and we know that that's not how we would approach it. So the answer to your question would be that that will be informed as we design a program and take a look at a long term as to what our capacity is, with some assumptions, right? Because we have to assume further out, and our FA would give us some scenarios about what our growth rates may be. Not being evasive but the reality is that that's how this exercise of a bond program that's over 30 years is executed.
So how did we get to 65? Who was the magic number for 65?
No,
this didn't,
No.
65 came before this.
Oh.
It was from a previous document that you saw that had the
range of
the
That's
outside
yes,
ability.
That's what I'm
right.
that's
It was
what
an
I was
outside-
talking about.
So what is, let's just, I think it's to get to your point, because there was this exercise, if you can refresh our recollection, what was the maximum amount of debt we could borrow statutorily in the presentation you guys made 5 months ago? Sorry, I think I know where you're going now.
$87 million, I think, is what we, Sergio, I think.
No, it was 87 million was not the statutory maximum. Now, I think that's what we recommended based on our capacity. But Sergio, do you have the answer?
I'll pull it up in a minute.
Okay.
It was multiple hundreds of millions of dollars.
Correct.
Right.
So let me try to interject here, maybe if I may, just for a minute, to answer the commissioner's question. So I think one way we look at general obligation programs, and we do this all over the country, you know, cities all over the country, this is one of the primary ways to finance capital programs. City of Key West just approved their program this morning, actually. I was on their call as well. One thing we look at, you know, working with all of you, is just the basic project needs. What are the project needs? What are the infrastructure needs? What investments do you want to make in the community over the next 5, 10, 20 years, 30 years in this case? You know, you don't want to exceed your project needs to the extent where normally you issue a GO bonds for actually less than you might need, and then 10 years from now, you may be asking for a new general obligation referendum for additional project needs at that time. So that's one thing we look at. I think the other thing, just to make it a very simple example, and I think this is where you were going, Commissioner, is, you know, looking at, you use the example of a $499,000 house, you know, that, or a credit score. One thing we look at, and we've looked at this for the city, is the credit metrics, right? What credit rating? The city doesn't currently have a credit rating, but looking at the different metrics that they use, you know, the major credit agencies like Moody's, S&P, would 65 million in general obligation authorization, would that cause the city's credit to deteriorate? When we looked at that, you have in excess of capacity of 65 million, to your credit score would not change at all. So if you consider that from a personal, you know, making a personal analogy, is if you were to take out a credit line of, you know, on your home or whatever for $100,000, would that change your credit score? That's kind of one of the things we look at as well. So in addition to project needs, we also look at, would it impact the credit of the issuer? And in this case, you know, 65 million, we think certainly you have a project list that exceeds that. And as far as your credit metrics, you have capacity, you know, significantly more capacity than the 65 million. So we think your credit will be held harmless.
And that's where the 80-some million comes in, where now you're getting into a credit where it could possibly diminish our credit rating. And just to add just one thing, it's about the equity also. Many of these items and capital projects and infrastructures that are going to be funded are going to last over the 30 years, the duration. And the people that are here living are the ones that are going to be paying for that improvement, for the benefit of using those improvements. And but instead of just paying for it and having the burden on the person either buying it at the end or buying it in the beginning, it spreads it evenly and equitably across the board.
Commissioner Liebman.
Sorry, these are my comments, but I have a question along these lines. So, Sergio Masvidal just referred to the project list. The total of the project list dollar amount was 122 million and change. And Mayor, I remember you saying that at the time in that meeting that this doesn't even cover all of our interests. So, between the 122 million and change that didn't cover all the city's or commission's interests, based on that, how did we get down to 65?
I mean, I'll give you my rule of thumb, right? You know, typically, if you're buying a home, right, what you can afford is a third of what you, right, or 3 times what you earn, right? So, to simplify this exercise in terms of what I thought, you know, if I'm going to go to the public and ask for authorization, what can I sell? I thought telling folks that we are going to borrow twice our average operating budget, you know, was not an amount that should scare anyone, right? But important enough to get started on a lot of deferred capital needs and, you know, and begin to think about planning for how we direct future revenue. So that's how I got to it. You know, I thought it was a number well within the statutory maximum, probably below what we need, but something that at least you could communicate and sell fairly easily to voters, because it's not a number, while it seems large relative to what our operating budget is annually, it's, you know, it's only twice that amount.
Twice the operating budget,
Yeah.
including CIP.
Yeah, but again, you know, I would tell you, you know, the way, yeah, that is actually absolutely accurate. Yep.
And then,
Go ahead.
So, and just in terms of my comments, and I'll leave it at this. I appreciate Commissioner Kai bringing up worst case scenario. Mayor, I know you said that worst case scenario, or following Commissioner Kai's comments, it could impact the millage by 25%. I know it's an approximate number. And speaking with the finance director, worst case scenario, so make a quote him on this $65 million bond, 30-year term, 4.25% interest would equate to a debt payment of 1.5 million annually, which would equate to.
No, it'd be
$4 million.
$4 million annually.
Sorry?
$4 million annually.
So if we were to borrow the full amount tomorrow at 4.5%, it's just north of $4 million in terms of debt service payment.
So
yeah.
you said that would also equate to a millage increase of 1.5 points. 1.5 divided by 3.95 is 38%. 38% increase in millage, not 25%. We need to be very clear about this on the record. So worst case scenario, based on numbers from our finance director,
But let's
would be a 38% increase.
Again, I want to just, let's put some guardrails on reality here, okay? And the guardrails are this commission, right? For that to happen, we would have to all, not only just approve this item, have the public approve the total debt issuance, but then we'd have to go ahead and say that we are going to borrow the full amount tomorrow when we all know we can't afford it. And we're going to raise taxes by 25 or 38%. You can pick your percentage, right? I don't think that anyone in their right mind would say that that would ever happen. So I just don't want it, again, because the public is possibly listening. Hopefully they are. I don't want to give them the impression that certainly this mayor is going to go out and say tomorrow, if they approve this, I'm going to turn around and ask them for a 38% tax increase. I'm certainly not going to do that. I doubt that anybody here is going to do the same thing. And the worst case scenario requires action where we would impose a hardship on ourselves. Let's be clear about that, right? It doesn't mysteriously happen by virtue of the fact that the public decides to authorize the bond issuance, right? We have to actually go to market, right, and say that we're going to carry that debt service payment, right? So there are many, many steps, and the ultimate check is what we think our taxpayer could stomach. And so, Commissioner, I'm a little uncomfortable with the characterization that the tax increase is automatic. That's the furthest thing from the truth.
Well, if I may, that wasn't a characterization. Those are the facts, and that's in the interest of transparency, and that's directly
It's
from our
not a
finance
fact.
director.
It's absolutely not a fact.
Okay, so what
The
the
fact
finance
i- the
director
fact-
said to me
the
is not
fact is-
fact.
It
You have
is.
to be
It is a fact.
transparent and let the public know about
Sir,
worst-case
but you are,
scenario.
sir, with
And
all
then
due
the other
respect,
thing
with all
I
due
wanna say-
respect, you are mistaken, because you are presuming that this body would vote
So-
to issue
so
the
to
debt
that
all at
point-
once, if I could finish my statement. Okay, you're presuming that this body.
No, I'm not.
You are.
I'm absolutely not.
So then how is it a fact?
Because, and I'm going to correct you twice, what you said previously and what you repeated now. It is not this body, because by the time this comes, this will be a different body, and two-thirds of this commission cannot assure that they'll be here by the, at the time that we find out if this passes or fails. So you said is inaccurate. There's a chance that 60% of this body won't be here.
There's also a
and
chance
20%
that there's also a chance that a successive commission will choose to not use the authorization.
Right, but we can't speak for them one way or the other.
Okay, well, I mean, so the public will weigh that risk. But I think neither of those two things are facts. They're possible outcomes, but neither is a certain fact.
To add that.
Recognized.
Sorry, Mayor. Commissioner Lehman, to add to that, though, whatever project we decide to go on there, whether it's us or the future, you're right, most of us probably won't be here, but at least the ability to do so, go out to the public, do legislation on it, have feedback from the public to tell us if they want that or not, that's available for us. And that's the guardrails that the mayor hasn't talked about as well, but it's also there for that. Am I making myself clear on that? No. Okay, let me explain it again. Whatever we decide to do projects, and maybe it's us, maybe it's the future commission. They want to go ahead and do the $15 million to do City Hall, for example. Whenever that comes there, it still has to go to the public. It still has to be legislation. We're going to have feedback on it. There's still going to be communication. So we would understand what the public wants when I say we, future commissions. So there's guardrails in places to see what projects get approved to that. The only way this is a worst-case scenario, and I apologize for speaking like that before, well, if we issue one bond for one specific project to be $65 million, for example, the park in Doral, right? That was a bond issued for that particular park in Doral, which exceeded, I don't know the number, over $200 million. That, obviously, they don't have the way to pay the debt, so they issue the mill rate. That's why you see the mill rate at Doral so high. That's where you see that case scenario. We won't see that here.
Okay, so may I ask the city attorney for clarification?
You may.
Okay, so city attorneys, if this item passes at this number, it's 65 million, and we'll use Commissioner Kai's example, there's a $15 million project that the city isn't interested in. Does that have to go back out to referendum again?
No, I think, let's clarify. I think his comment was that it would have to be authorized by this board by a successive vote. That's what I understood his comment to be.
Yes, that's what I said.
Not that it would go to referendum.
I thought it was the voters, right? The commission, which we can't speak for. The future commission, which we can't speak for. But once the 65 is approved, there's no additional.
Well, let me throw out this other scenario, right? Let's assuming the charter change on August 20th passes, right? Theoretically, this commission, without pledging the full faith and credit of the city, could by a 4/5 vote, right, encumber the city with as much as $65 million in debt, or $20 million in debt, right? So, again, I'm not sure what your concern is. I say this sincerely. I think there are multiple steps here that require this commission or a successive commission to take action for there to be the kind of a tax increase that you are concerned about. And so, I think, what we're talking about here is giving us another tool in the toolbox to accomplish many of the things that we've been talking about for a year and a half, but have not had the ability to execute because we don't have this as a vehicle to plan around, right? This would allow us to make let's assume Sunset Place was having success pre-selling condominiums, and we could estimate that we were expecting 3 years from now a few $1 million of ad valorem revenues, right? We could anticipate that future revenue, and under this authorization, go to market and borrow in tranches to begin street improvements in our downtown, right? Something we all wanted to see do. Again, this just creates optionality, which is something that, frankly, our charter is designed for this government to do nothing. And so my motivation with respect to the ballot initiative that I thank you all for supporting for August 20th is to create more optionality, more flexibility so we can do things affirmatively, as opposed to kind of remain in the posture the city's been in for the last 25 years, and no fault of anyone here, where we've done very little, all right? And what we've seen, I think Commissioner Lieben, you've been at the forefront of calling us out on the need to change the face of our downtown. But the reason we've been in this posture is because our rules around borrowing are very restrictive, and prior commissions have not had the courage to frankly ask the voters to give us the opportunity to consider this as a tool to finance much-needed improvements.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not agreeing with you, but as a commission, as a government body, and in the interest of transparency, I don't think it's fiscally responsible to ignore a worst-case scenario and the possibility of a future commission. And as much as we want to look at all the potential positives, I think at the same time, it's incumbent upon us to be transparent about the worst-case scenario. And we can't speak for future commissions. So I'm not disagreeing with any of the positives. I absolutely support the August item because it's bad policy, but I'm not in favor of this bonding threshold here at 65 million, and I'm going to vote no on the item, and I'm going to vote no in November on the item.
You may, of course.
Is there a way for us to build something in here so that if a commission did go rogue and wanted to, like, say, we're gonna borrow $65 million, is there a way to put guardrails on that? Because what he's saying has a certain validity to it, where we can't even pretend to know what other people are gonna do it within the next 30 years. So is there a way to?
Madam Vice Mayor,
Kind of
I would just say
control
this to you. I mean, the charter as it's been designed since 2004 with its current borrowing rules were the guardrails. And the result of that, right, has been that we've been locked in stagnation for 2 decades, right? And so I would say to you, philosophically, there's no guarantees in life, right? What we've got to hope is that the good people of South Miami will continue to choose their city council members judiciously, right? And that given that ultimately the check on whatever we do is the fact that we have to meet the public, in my case every 2 years, in your case every 4 years, that we're going to govern ourselves by what we think the public would want us to do responsibly, right? And I think to do more than that puts us in the same situation we've been in for the last 25 years, which are basically rules that inhibit any action.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that. I'm trying to see if we can find something that might work for everyone. I don't think that it would be out of bounds to say that we wouldn't be able to borrow more than 40% of that in 1 year without some kind of approval from another mechanism or something, because if we put $65 million and it's sitting there, there's nothing other than, the fear of the resident or the fear of not being reelected. And so instead of saying we get all or nothing, could we try to find some kind, are you making like a dead person? Try to find something where at least it gives a level of comfort. Is there any interest on that at all?
If you have some thoughts, I'm certainly open to hearing them. I just don't have
Do
a.
we want to say that we couldn't
So what are you?
do more than 50% of that at any given time? Like, we couldn't turn around and say, all right, we want $32.5 million this year.
I understand what you're saying. Through the mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Maybe this is a question for the city attorneys. So for example, is there anything that we can put in place that we can't borrow at one ask more than, 33% of said value? Is that something that I'm just asking the question for a second.
So a couple things. Could we do something like that? We could do something like that. We could enact an ordinance that directs that. But that ordinance would be subject to change by any commission, just like any other ordinance. So, it would have the force of law, but it could be changed in the future.
With a 3/5 vote?
Yes.
Yes, that would be a 3/5 vote.
Just want to make sure it's clear.
That's correct, yes, yes. Now, just to kind of add a layer to this, and I don't want to complicate it more, but the statutes on the budget already create certain guardrails in terms of the increase of taxes. There are vote requirements, and there's a maximum cap on the millage rate that you cannot exceed. Now, a 38% increase in the millage rate would not come anywhere near that maximum cap, but it would require a 5 out of 5 vote to enact that in any year. So those guardrails might already be there.
Can I ask the question about that? Because I agree with the general operating millage limitations, but is the debt service millage subject to the same limitation? Or are we just statutorily required to carry the minimum amount debt service millage so we can actually continue to defease the bonds?
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if Mr. Masvidal has some insight into that. So Sergio, look, I think the general posture, when we've discussed this before, of the board today, is that we would want to borrow, but not have the aggregate millage, debt service, and operating exceed whatever our millage is today, right? So if we're 395, if we were to have growth in the future that we wanted to retire on the operating side, we could then basically authorize debt to kind of keep us at 395 in total. Certainly, that's how I have always conceptualized the program, right? If we were going to do this.
That's a good point.
But in terms of Mr. Masvidal, in terms of how this debt gets serviced, is it under this? It's under a separate debt service millage that's levied, correct?
That's right. That's
Okay.
my understanding as well. I mean, I would certainly defer to the legal, but the way I read the statutes, if it's a voter authorized referendum for a general obligation bond, you have unlimited authority to increase the millage to what is necessary to service that debt.
Correct. So, and I believe the debt service is capped at whatever the required debt service is for the debt that's outstanding. So, for example, if whatever $600,000, let's say, is the equivalent of what, Mr. Riverall?
10 million.
10 million.
roughly.
No, 10 million, but in terms of millage, it's $250,000, a tenth of a mil.
A
So
tenth
let's-
of a mil is 250,000, so
Okay, so let's say it's two and a half tenths of a mil, right? Let's assume we wanted to take that money out of our operating budget. We could reduce the operating millage by that amount and have a debt service millage that would service $10 million in debt, right? So we're reducing our ability to fund operations through the operating millage, and the debt service millage is added on top of that. But the total taxing effort to the resident is the same, right? The same as it is today. Now, I don't know how we would put any further guardrails around that, other than establishing a policy of this board, which again, as the city attorney has mentioned, could be modified, unless we want to change the charter again and make that a charter limitation, which would not be my preference personally. Further questions? Let's try to see if we can bring this one in for a landing,
Yep.
one way or the other.
So then, where did we land with all of that talk? We landed in where? If we got $65 million, we wouldn't be able to borrow more, whatever that guardrail was that the mayor just explained of the millage. Would we do it that way? Would we do it as percentage? How would we do this? Or what do we direct towards this so there's a clear understanding of what the parameters are?
No, I think, if I understood the last bit of the discussion, is that theoretically, the entire 65 million could, you could issue bonds in the amount of the $65 million and you would pay for it through the debt service millage. So you could conceivably do it in one shot. That doesn't mean you would, that just means theoretically, that's possible. Does that answer the question? No.
No.
Can maybe just
Maybe I'm not-
to kind of let's maybe with a real world example with the benefit of our financial advisor online. Mr. Vossabell, let's say of the last 10 GOB offerings that you've worked on, how many cities have actually borrowed the full authorization in one fell swoop?
0.
Can I ask him something?
Yes, go ahead.
How many have borrowed it within 3 years?
Maybe.
I would ask,
Even
it-
within three-
yeah.
Yeah, even within 3 years, I mean, I think just realistically, what's happening in the municipalities we work with, as I mentioned, the IRS spend down requirements. At the time you issue the bonds, the finance director, Alfredo, sorry to put you on the spot, will have to sign a certificate that gets submitted to the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, that says he has a reasonable expectation that those monies will be spent within 3 years. So really, we only typically, when we issue these bonds, we're issuing for projects that are shovel ready and will be ready to, all the bond expenditures will be made within those 3 years. So the window we see normally, kind of the cycle, is probably every 3 years for a referendum program.
And again, to address the worst case scenario concerns, Mr. Boswell, how many GOB authorizations have you seen where a city has issued debt and in aggregate raised the total taxing effort, combination of operating millage and debt service? Is that the norm, or is that
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to give you kind of a very kind of a numerical objective answer on that, but I can certainly tell you that, elected officials all over the state, the country, just like yourselves, are sensitive to their constituents, sensitive to the overall millage rate, and consider that when they're making the determination to, one, issue bonds for certain projects, and two, to fund certain programs on the operating side. So certainly they're looking at each October, when you're setting your budget, you're looking at both sides of that equation.
Commissioner Kaya, you're recognized.
We did the millage study where we saw the different cities and what their mill rate was. You did see a column of added millage due to obligation bonds. There was maybe 2 or 3. Most of them that were pretty big were major cities that are doing that. For example, Doral pulled a major obligation bond for their park, Central Park, right? That's been pulled already, and that's already on their mill rate, but that's one of the few. To my recollection, Mr. Masvidal, I don't know if there's any other ones that you know off your recollection that you'd see. I didn't see that many in Miami-Dade County.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, what the question exactly is?
Maybe what cities in Miami-Dade County have actually exceeded and have to pull millage from to pay the obligation?
How many, I think the question is, how many have a dedicated debt service millage?
Thank you.
Well, there's roughly, someone help me out here. There's roughly, 35 municipalities within the county?
Yes, yeah.
I want to say, probably 10 to 15 of those have a general obligation bond program.
It's on the millage table. On the millage table that we present, there's a column, like you mentioned. For
I think there were only 2 on today's. I think it was Miami and Doral that were on the one
Condensed it.
in the comp set that we were looking at. So, okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
there's certainly more than that, but yeah, Miami and Doral are kind of 2 of the newer ones. I mean, we just sold a series of Miami bonds today. The first of their, I guess to answer one of your questions, Commissioner, Miami issued a large capital program, 300 million, and we issued 100 million of those today. So
That was 4 years after the authorization, correct?
4 years after the authorization, and they, as far as we can see, is the forecast they've asked us to run. They don't have plans to issue additional bonds for the next, 3 to 4 years.
Mr. Manager, and then
Yeah,
Commissioner Lieben.
Mayor, I just want to shed some light on the actual question that would be, go to the voters if approved tonight. And really, the focus of the question is the voter providing their approval to be taxed for this purpose. And the only limitations that they're giving is, not exceeding 65 million in one or more series. Additional guardrails or the when and the how would still be part of this process and this commission's deliberations through time, right? Or any commission for that matter. So in this case, they're not telling you have to do it within this time period, other than within 30 years, or not later than 30 years from the issuance dates, right? So what I want to shed light on the question is that it's...
Just because we've said 30 years a few times, is that accurate? So that maximum life of the authorization is 30 years, or is it?
No, my understanding, I'm sorry if I can interject here.
Go ahead, sir.
Once the referendum is authorized, your authorization does not expire, that I'm aware of.
I'm reading the ballot question. I'm reading the actual language. It says, in one or more series maturing not later than 30 years from their issuance date.
Well, that's the maturity date. So that's the maturity date of the bond.
Understand.
Okay.
But
No, I just
there's a
wanted to-
window of time that, I'm talking about the parameters of
Correct. So,
what this-
Mr. Manager, I don't want to,
Yeah.
just to be clear, I want to make sure I'm clear so that we're clear with the public. I think what that language says, and Mr. Cerny, correct me, is that the maximum maturity, the maximum term of the indebtedness for any series cannot be more than 30 years. Am I correct? Okay.
So the parameters are, part of the questions are not to exceed 65 million, the 30-year language, and interest, not above what's allowable by law, right? Timeframes, the when, how much and when is still subject to this governing body's discussion and approval, or, and I want to say this body, whomever's sitting in those chairs over time. So the issue of guardrails and prudence and what capacity we really have and not exceeding will definitely be up to the commission that's sitting there to make that determination in consultation with the advice from their financial advisor. There are commissions that maybe could take on more than necessary, but that'll be, that'll have to be demonstrated, with the support of the financial advisors. What would it be required to do what you want to do, right? And yes, there could be a vote that's taken that people say, well, that's too much or too little, but it would still be within the confines of what the voters have allowed to do. So what I'm saying is that some of this is conversation that could be taken at a later date. If the voters say, we'd like you to do this, these conversations can be had by any commission. No different than right now. As limited and as archaic as in my opinion, our charter language as it relates to votes needed for borrowing, it has no other rails as to the when. So it's no different position than what the charter language currently has of 4 votes or 5 votes, depending if it exceeds 5%. So that exposure is currently there now, and it's protected by those that are sitting on the commission. That doesn't change. This language would still put that burden on whoever's sitting in this commission to issue in a responsible manner based on the city's capacity. So as limiting as the current charter is, it doesn't provide those protections. And so that doesn't change. It's still the burden of this commission to issue that in a responsible manner, and that'll be determined, whether it's responsible or not, obviously. But even in the current state, that could still happen. It would be those that are sitting in your seats, whether it's you or somebody else, to make those decisions. So I think that concern of somebody acting irrationally is there today, and it could be tomorrow. The likelihood of that is relative. So I just share that because I want to bring context back to the question, right? And from an opinion standpoint, professionally, the inability of the city to go beyond a pay-as-you-go model, I can tell you that it exceeds our ability. Forget growth. That growth, as Commissioner Lieben said, some of these things won't come online for a certain time. So a pay-as-you-go with some of the things that we have we're facing today and we know are forthcoming exceeds our ability from a pay-as-you-go. So I just say that because we need some alternative means to take a look and solve some of our problems. This would provide it, and you still have the ability to provide some guardrails.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to allow for one more round of comments.
Okay.
So Commissioner Lieben, since you had a bite of the apple before, and I think Commissioner Corey has not, I'm going to recognize him, and I'll come back to you. Is that fair?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you, and I just wanted to speak my piece before we do end up voting. I mentioned this earlier today, but looking at our residential, looking at our commercial and the rate at which they're developing and improving, and then looking on the public side, all of the demands that we have, I believe this will give us the opportunity to keep up pace with them. And even to Commissioner Lieben's comments before, even as commercial comes online, there will be a delay before we see the benefit of that. And I do think this is a good idea for us to be able to keep up pace with them. And I think it's prudent to send it to the voters, so I'll support it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Lieben, you're recognized.
I was going to call the question after I speak, but I think at least 3 people on the dais will like what I'm going to have to say. I'll be rewarded for recognizing me, Mayor, though it does not include me voting for the item, though I'm not opposed to the public weighing in. I just don't want my vote to allow the public to weigh in to be misconstrued as me supporting the item. So what I want to say is, if I was going to present this and I was championing this, I would start with, this is what we need, this is what we want to the public, and this is how it will benefit your life. That's one. Then I would, which surprised didn't come up, I would touch on all, and this is significant, and I'll exceed what anyone has said or probably will say, but the anticipated revenues could be in the millions of dollars from Sunset Place. Got exact number, I think it's shy of, don't quote me, but on And the Fresh Market project, maybe our city manager or finance director has that number, and all the other projects. Police City Hall project will be very rewarding for the city, as well as several other projects in play, which will produce a rich tax base for the city. So that's number two, and you could, when you do that model, you can be conservative, and they're projected. And then the third thing, which everyone always overlooks when we discuss millage, is even if we, hypothetically, the city raised the millage by 100%, that would only be a 20% increase in the overall tax bill. No matter what we do to the millage, we only control 20% of the homeowner's tax bill. The rest of it comes from the county and fire, city manager, and library, and so forth. You can just look at your tax bill and see, and there's debt obligations, how it's broken down for the county. So whatever increase it is, it's only relative to approximately 20% of your overall tax property bill. And a lot of the residents confuse that our millage represents 100% of their bill. So those are the three angles I'd approach it from.
Agreed. Further comments? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion on item 11? I'm sorry.
There's no one.
Item 11 is a public hearing item. If there's any member of the public who'd like to address this commission on the item, please come forward at this time. Madam Clerk, is there anyone online?
No one's online.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may.
You may.
There are two options for the title of the ballot question on page 412 of the agenda. Is there any preference for the title of the ballot question? Two options are there.
What page again?
Page
412 of the
No,
agenda, or
they don't
3
have
of 6 of the resolution, page 3.
I don't have my computer died.
Where in the resolution?
Page 3 of the resolution,
Yeah, give it to the
which is
mayor.
highlighted in yellow. There's two title options for the question.
Through the mayor?
Yes, sir.
Maybe we can just read them out to the public and then we just.
Certainly. Madam City Attorney, would you read them, please?
Yes. The first option is bond referendum for parks and recreation, public works, and public safety improvements and infrastructure. The second option is bond referendum for improvements, infrastructure, and property for parks, recreation, public works, and public safety. Also keeping in mind that we are limited to 15 words on that title.
Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
The first one doesn't make any sense to me. The second one reads properly to me, but the first one's like choppy.
Okay, that's a good point.
Like infrastructure just hangs out there.
Right. And the point is to advise the public of the purpose of these bonds, right?
Correct.
The question has to have the purpose, and the title should as well.
So is Madam Vice Mayor, you're in favor of the second title?
I would, just because
Okay.
it just reads better. It might not make more sense when you read it as a voter, but it at least reads better.
And I'm assuming we did parks/recreation, because if we would add a 16th word, is that?
That's correct, Mayor. It's exactly 15 words.
Why wouldn't we take out like bond referendum for improvements, infrastructure, comma, property for parks, recreation, comma, public works and public safety? I don't know that we need and there twice if you're trying to buy a word.
I think we should move the second one, honestly.
I agree.
Okay, so let's, is there a motion to adopt item 11 with the alternate title as a preferred option?
I'll move the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kaye, second by Commissioner Corey.
With option B.
Correct, with the alternate title, as it's listed on page 3 of 6 on the item for on item 11? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner Kayem,
Yes.
Commissioner Corian,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehman. Yes. Vice Mayor Bonish,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Can we read item 12, please?
Yes, item 12, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Commission.
I'm sorry.
No, I thought we were voting on which item, because we just chose the language.
Alternate, yeah, no, he said a motion.
No, I basically
Okay,
asked for,
well,
so
yeah,
do you
I'm
want?
definitely voting no.
Okay, so can you
I'll
reflect?
change your vote to no.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone else is fine with their vote? Okay, thank you.
Item 12, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, amending Article 2 definitions, Article 3 zoning regulations, and Article 4 other regulations to permit urgent care facilities and provide applicable regulations.
Madam Clerk, are we,
Yeah.
we are good on the title? Thank you. Okay,
This is number 12, right?
correct, yes.
Okay,
I was
move the
being-
item.
You'll move the item. Is there a second? Well, before we move the item, we have to have a public hearing. My apologies. So is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address this commission on item 12, which is a modification to our zoning regulations to permit urgent care facilities? Seeing no one in the chamber, is there anyone online? Seeing no one online either. Commissioner Lieben, you're recognized for a motion. Like to move the item?
I move item 12.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
So a motion by Commissioner Lieben, a second by Commissioner Corey. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner Kayem,
Yes.
Commissioner Corian,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes,
Item passes 5-0.
thank you. If you can read item 13.
Item 13, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, amending Section 2-2.26.7 Unique Abilities Board of the City Code of Ordinances to revise the qualification requirements for board members.
Thank you. This is a first reading item. Commissioner Kai, I believe this is your item. Did you want to?
Yeah,
Produce
so I think this is just the ability, I thought we did this already. With the ability to have either in resident or commercial?
Yeah, we discussed it. No, this is
Oh.
the unique abilities, yes,
Yeah.
to have residents or commercial
Okay.
owners.
I thought we did that last commission.
We had a
We
discussion
discussed it.
item.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's what
and
essentially-
direct them to bring it back as an ordinance.
Okay.
That's correct.
so- Yeah, I think nothing's changed since then.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, with that as the explanation, is there a motion on item 13?
I'll move it.
Okay.
Second.
So a motion by Commissioner Kaya, a second by Commissioner Corey. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Commissioner Kayem,
Yes.
Commissioner Corian,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehman. Yes. Vice Mayor Bonish,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Okay, we have an add-on item before everyone packs up, still to consider. If you could read the add-on item one more time, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes, add-on a resolution of the City Commission of the City of South Miami, Florida, calling for a City of South Miami special election to be held on November 5th, 2024, for the purpose of submitting to the electorate a proposed amendment to Section 2A of Article 5 Elections of the City Charter to increase the term of office for the office of the city mayor to 4 years, beginning with the 2026 South Miami general election, providing for a notice of election, providing for requisite ballot language and charter amendment text for submission to the electorate, providing for the city clerk to utilize the services of Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections for the special election.
I move the item.
I'll second it.
So what we have in front of us, this body hasn't voted on, but, Commissioner Corey has. The previous body voted on this item to put on the November ballot. I'm quoting the mayor, there's no reflection on our mayor, but this was the only item that failed on the last ballot. But I want to remind everyone, took several attempts, kept sponsoring these items. You only have to hear yes once. Several attempts to move the election November, several attempts to reduce 5 out of 5 to 4 out of 5. And just like the other item we have in our on the August ballot, this is just a matter of correcting bad policy. So what this item speaks to, even though the commission knows, maybe the community doesn't, the commissioner's terms are 4 years. They're staggered. The mayor's term is always 2 years, because for approximately 100 years, the city always had a special election in April in order to keep that special election relevant. the mayor's term was 2 years to increase turnout. Best turnout we had, or recent average numbers, were approximately 2,000. Now, in a non-presidential cycle, turnout's at least 100% greater. And in a presidential cycle, turnout's at least 200% greater. So the turnout's already built in. The turnout's implied. We don't need the mayor's term, the mayor to be up every 2 years to have turnout. Again, the turnout's already built in November. And, you know, I could argue that the mayor's position should be the most influential position, and I could argue it's the least influential because it's the same vote. The mayor's expressed authorities, but actually not that many, but it's the equal vote for half the time as the commissioners. Also, personally, I don't want, not as a commissioner, but as a resident, I don't want the mayor to have to campaign every 2 years. If you assume a campaign takes a year, that means that they're campaigning half the time. And you traditionally want less transition, especially if it's new mayor. You want to give them a chance to get settled into the job. So, for all those reasons, I believe that the mayor's term should be 4 years. Just a note for the commission, just like last time, it would not take effect this election. The earliest it could take effect would be 2026. So, I don't know if there's any questions. I just think it's bad policy, and I think the mayor's term should be, and I think that, sorry, I don't know what the ballot language says, but I'd like for it to say that the mayor's term should be consistent with the commissioner's terms of 4 years.
Okay.
Maybe changing the language will help the public better understand it, because there's really no reason not to support this in terms of the public.
Madam Vice Mayor.
Yes. Can we just make the ballot language one of those, like, keep it simple, stupid? So that people understand what they're voting for. I think last time people were confused. And so, people skipped over it. When you don't know, you vote no. So if we say, just like Josh said, to make the mayor the same as everybody else, the end.
Mayor's term consistent with the
Yeah, the end. Like, let's not add extra words so we get to like 15 or whatever it is.
And honestly, maybe I'm biased or just ignorant. I don't know any negative, unless you have a bad mayor, but just in terms of the policy.
That is negative.
But
Careful what you wish for, that's all I'm going to say. I just don't know what I'm going to do with all the extra time, so there we go. I've been, yeah, it's a dead person. Do we have language that we want to read in the record?
Yeah, we have the ballot question is this would read, the city charter currently provides for a 2-year term for the city's mayor, period. Shall the charter be amended to increase the term of office for the mayor to 4 years, consistent with the term of office for city commissioners, beginning with the 2026 South Miami general election?
Now, is that the same language that was used in the prior?
I don't believe so. That's.
Can we verify that?
We got to look that up. Let's see.
But I don't think.
Okay, well, let's table this for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I want to raise a non-agenda item, if I may.
I'm sorry, and I wanted one thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I'm not opposed if the commission wants to start this in 2028. Okay.
Okay,
Just
well,
accommodate
with your
our
indulgence.
current mayor.
With your indulgence, I don't have any objection to when it starts. With your indulgence, while they're reviewing that item, we have our first Art in Public Places donation, which has a bond that's set to expire on August 4th. We met with the Related Urban this week. They've asked if they could pay. There's about a $21,000 differential between their required contribution, the value of the art that they've already installed or purchased on behalf of the city. Apparently, the code does allow for us to accept the balance in cash. It does require a waiver, right? There's not time to bring an item for that waiver before that bond expires. So what I'd like this council, if there's any objection, to consider is to basically direct the manager to go ahead and accept the cash remittance and have the city attorney put on our next agenda a resolution to ratify the manager's acceptance of that contribution, and affirmatively adopting the waiver as required by the city code. Did I state that correctly, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes. yeah,
Okay.
You're ratifying the manager's acceptance of the $21,000 differential, and it would be a post-acceptance.
Waiver of the requirement?
Yeah.
Okay. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Would we want to consider using those funds, since it is the same neighborhood, to help the clinic, as the doctor had mentioned earlier, in starting a pantry or something like that? I'm just thinking about creative ways to keep that in the area that they are in.
Since it is an exaction, I think it's probably limited into the use that we collected it for, but I'd defer to council on whether those dollars are treated as general revenue or they're treated as restricted funds.
It's general revenue, but it's targeted towards specific, there are limitations within the code as to what it can be spent for. It can be spent for beautification. It can be spent for placemaking. It can be spent for, there's a targeted list of
Okay,
things.
so it's not revenue you can receive that we could redirect for any purpose.
bad.
So, okay. But it is a nice sentiment, yes.
Mr. Mayor, just clarification, so the amount is $21,955. So that's the difference of their total commitment that's required of $493,260. So the check would be for $21,955.
Okay.
As alternate uses, I just also want to remind that there is a donation of a sculpture that we are in possession of, that we still have to cite and maybe build a base, so there could be some costs in finishing that out. So these funds could go towards that, I would also say.
Okay. So, again, Madam City Attorney, is the direction sufficient? Or do we need to actually have this body vote on that direction?
I think it's sufficient, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So unless there's any objection, we'll consider you so directed. Okay, thank you. And whenever we're ready on the last item, we'll close this out. Yes, sir.
Did you want to discuss commission date?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. Apparently, we have the option of canceling one of our two meetings in August. I think staff would prefer us to meet on August 20th, as we do have a healthcare item that we need to take up timely. Is there a preference on the part of this body as to when we would want to meet?
I've noted from before that I will not be present August 20th.
Okay.
I'm dropping my kids at college and won't be logging on.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I prefer August 20th. I'll be out of town the first week of August as well. So it'd be the vice versa. No, I know it's vice versa from the vice mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can call in either way.
Well, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that next. So August 6th or the 20th. I would say my preference is to be August 20th because I know that my kids are back in school and here. So if it's not too much of an inconvenience, do we anticipate having a very heavy agenda that day, sir?
We'd have to lean on the deputy city manager who kind of tracks and see, but we know for sure that getting everything ready for the healthcare item will be on August 20th, so that's why we're saying.
Okay, so we will
that
not
we
be able
would-
to have that item.
August 6th.
If we decided just to meet August 6th, not the 20th,
We would not
we not
have
being
our
ready
item
to
ready in
have the
time.
August,
Correct.
the healthcare item
Yeah.
considered. And again, that I guess that transition happens in September, so we would not have a chance to take it up at our regular September meeting timely. Okay, so I think for that reason, probably August 20th is the appropriate date, and I apologize, Madam Vice Mayor, that we're not going to be able to accommodate you. Okay. So is there a motion to cancel the August 6th meeting of the commission?
I'll move it.
One second.
Okay, so a motion by the Vice Mayor and a second by Commissioner Kaye. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Kaye?
Yes.
Commissioner Corey?
Yes.
Commissioner Liebman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish?
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Passes 5-0 to council.
Okay.
Commissioner, while they're checking, I guess, Commissioner Lehman had asked about the schedule of City Hall, and as it was mentioned before, tomorrow is the deadline for proposals. So depending on what happens tomorrow, obviously the work will begin in earnest to review and analyze those proposals.
Okay, but in terms of you'll be putting together a selection and review committee, when do you anticipate you'll be announcing the committee composition?
We're in the process of identifying, who those individuals would be. Obviously, it'd be some staff internally. If there's any recommendations of somebody in the community that has a background that would suit well for a committee like that, certainly I'm open for those suggestions, as I mentioned before. So we want to move quickly so we can stay on our timeline. So within a week's time after tomorrow, because I got to wait and see if we have work to do or not, right? Hopefully we will, and we'll have some proposals.
Through the mayor?
Yes, sir.
Assuming proposals come in tomorrow, are we able, as a commission, start seeing those? Or
They're-
do we have to wait for selection?
No, they're public record unless the city attorney, because of the cone, they have to wait.
Yeah, they're not made public yet.
Please, in the
After the
microphone.
submission deadline?
If we could speak into the microphone, please.
Yeah, I need to double check the timing, but they're not made public yet. They won't be made public until about when the manager makes the initial recommendation.
So two questions. They're not a public record, but are they accessible to the members of the commission if they want to review the
No, because
presentation?
you guys are the ones making the selection.
Understood,
Yeah.
but,
I think until,
I'm not meeting with
so let me just, again, to clarify, help my colleague out here, because I think I understand where he's going. I think we can review the solicitation materials that are received as long as we're not speaking to any of the
Yes.
respondent parties or staff, correct? I know
That
they're
was my
fighting.
question.
It's the difficulty, we have two attorneys, two different opinions. Okay.
I think the commission can receive the solicitations, however, you cannot disseminate them in any way
Correct.
to anyone else or share them with the public, et cetera.
As long as we're,
You're recognized, sir. Go ahead.
thanks.
Problem.
As long as we're on pause, if a commissioner or mayor wants to give up their seat after 2 years, how does that work? Maybe it's a question for the city clerk. Can you announce it, and then can you serve? For example,
I'm sorry, what are we, we're,
I just want to, because, yeah, okay, don't worry.
okay,
Just
no,
curious
I think we switched topics, if I'm
Okay, well,
hearing you
let's
correctly.
continue
Let's
with
continue the
because-
city hall schedule
but
to
we
get
didn't-
your first
We weren't
answer.
continuing along the schedule.
No, so I think we had a question about number one, can we review the materials? Your answer was yes, so long as we do not speak to anyone who's a respondent or a member of staff, and we do not disseminate the materials. Is that correct? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
When we're talking about the group that will be reviewing this, do we think it would be helpful to have maybe somebody from Budget and Finance, since now they're closed out, having them be part of that group?
Know
I'm
About the
ju-
committee?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, from a budget and finance, we'll be leaning on our financial advisor. And then we have the financial advisors, and then we have the outside counsel.
Yeah, no,
So
I'm
we have
just
that
wondering.
technical expertise.
Yeah,
and-
I just wonder if we'd want their involvement so that they're seeing, they've gone through the entire thing up to now. I wonder if it would be beneficial to have one of them be on that committee, just because they have some institutional knowledge, or even for them to
I
kind
would-
of have continuity.
I would, if I could suggest, I think, in terms of folks that I know on that committee that have a background in real estate-related development, Chance Rivera, who's my appointee, actually worked for a real estate development timeshare company until recently, may be a good person to put on the selection committee if we want to suggest someone to the manager. Obviously, it's a suggestion. Or, Jay possibly being a former lender, might have some expertise they could offer there as well. Again, there might be someone who's a good fit. I frankly prefer to delegate to the manager the selection. I don't necessarily want to be nominating someone. I think between the FA and the appraiser, who we'll be working with, and staff, we probably will be fine with the composition of the committee, but it's my opinion. But there's some good candidates on the Budget and
Yeah,
Finance
I
Committee.
just thought that they have very interesting
Okay.
levels of expertise.
Just in terms of timeline, when would you anticipate convening the, to get back to Commissioner Liebman's question quickly? When would you anticipate convening the committee if you established it within a week?
Well, I mean, getting the calendars aligned for whoever's going to be on there would be key, right? So answering that would be difficult without knowing their availability, but our goal is to get something, have them be able to review documents and give them time to review, so when they sit down. So within 10 days of tomorrow, I think would be something that we could shoot for. barring that the people that are, that's a problem, the bigger the group and it's difficult to get, especially now in the summer. So I think within 10 days gives them the ability to review, because these are going to be pretty comprehensive proposals. We would anticipate that touches a lot of things from architecture to economic analysis. And so I would give you that as a guideline. If we can do it sooner, great, but we're mindful of an October date to have this commission take action on a recommendation.
Again, was it the first meeting in October, to be clear?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know it's correct because Commissioner Liebman would have corrected me if I was wrong.
Okay. Do we have an answer on the charter question?
No, I can. When did it go to the,
It went last November, November 22, excuse me.
can't find the,
Oh, yeah, as long as, well, you have it?
No, in the meantime, I think we created 3 options.
Oh, Lord.
We like options.
I was hoping we'd get out of here by 10, but I guess that
Okay, we'll go.
that dream did not happen, so.
So, all right, first alternate option.
good, go.
The city charter provides for a 2-year term for the city's mayor. Shall the charter be amended to increase the term of office for the mayor to 4 years to be the same as the term of office for city commissioners, beginning with the 2026 South Miami election?
Can we write, the city charter provides that the mayor's term is half the duration of the commission's terms, of the commissioner's term?
Can I just suggest, let's find the language that failed,
Yeah, the
and then let's talk about what we may want to change to it as opposed to kind of divining a whole new bunch of scenarios.
The
I
title.
think, it may be, I don't remember how it was styled.
It
I
was
don't even remember how I voted for
It
it.
said establishment of a 4-year term of office for the city mayor. And the question was, shall city charter Article 5, Section 2, titled General Elections, Paragraph A be amended to increase the term of office of the mayor from 2 years to 4 years?
Okay, so it doesn't mention, yeah, so.
Doesn't mention it.
Okay, so it's very jargon heavy, so,
And doesn't even mention to be consistent.
correct, so, okay, let's discard that, we won't reuse that, and let's
What
move on to
happened
the
before, I
alternative.
used to get so excited that if an item that passed, I would just stop. It's like I get so excited, I catch the ball, I wouldn't run.
I would tell you, following Commissioner Liebman's comment, if you say shall the mayor's term currently set at, should be, which is, what the commissioners are.
I agree.
I
It's-
mean, that's,
No,
Yeah.
I might be happy, you want to use the same language again?
8 years?
Honestly, if I may,
Yes, you may.
I don't like the reference to the sections in the charter. There's no need.
If there's no legal requirement for it, I wouldn't add it, yes.
And people don't
concur.
care. They don't know. It's not like they're opening the book.
So let's talk through the alternatives quickly.
So the first one. The city charter provides for a 2-year term for the city's mayor. Shall the charter be amended to increase the term of office for the mayor to 4 years to be the same as the term of office for city commissioners?
I would reverse that and say, shall the mayor's term be increased or be made consistent with the
Yes.
city commissioners?
First sentence.
With the 4-year term of city
City commissioners, yeah.
with the 4-year term of city commissioners.
Well, do you need the reference for the current 2-year term? I don't know, to close.
We don't, we did it as a counterpoint, but you could conceivably, that could be the question. Shall the mayor's term be made consistent with, be made consistent with the 4-year term of city commissioner? Or
Perfect.
shall the mayor's term be increased to be consistent with the 4-year?
Why even, I wouldn't write in.
I would say, shall the mayor's term be increased to 4 years consistent with the term of city commissioners?
Do we have to write increased or
commission.
just be made consistent?
Consistent with or set at the same
Right.
as commissioners?
Won't even write increased.
I think you need to add, shall amend the charter. Shall the charter be
Shall
amended?
the charter be amended to,
Guys, microphones, please.
you want to stay away from increase. Shall the charter be amended to set the mayor's term
Consistent.
consistent? Got it.
Perfect.
Consistent with the commission's term of 4 years. With the commissioner's term of 4 years, or 4 year, I mean, but you use your term twice in the same word, in the same sentence. One more time, please.
shall the charter be amended to set the mayor's term consistent with the 4-year term of city commissioners, or with the city commissioners' term of 4
I
years?
prefer us to use the word term one less time.
Can you just put that of the city commissioners?
But term is a good term.
Oh, jeez.
So final? We have to vote on it, too.
Okay, what is the one more time, Mr. City
I don't
Attorney?
know. Shall the charter be amended to set the mayor's term consistent with
The duration?
No.
With the commission's 4-year term.
I think that's fine. One more
That's it right
time,
there.
Madam City Attorney, can you read that into the record?
I always
With
like to think that the word term and sentence are synonymous.
Term and sentence.
city
Yes.
commissioners' term?
It's gonna feel
of
like a
4
term.
years?
4 years.
Wow, it's gonna take 4 years, okay. Okay, shall the charter be amended to set the mayor's term consistent with the city commissioner's term of 4 years?
Okay,
Perfect.
fine.
All right, we have
Is there a
motion.
motion on that language?
I'll move it.
Okay.
And also, can we tweak the title to reflect that?
What is the current title that you're using?
Current title is very simple. It reads 4-year term of office for city mayor.
I think that's fine.
Perfect.
You could say 4-year term of office for city mayor to be the same.
No.
No.
4-year term, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's fine. Less is more, I think, is the preference here. Okay, we have a motion by the vice mayor with the amended
Second.
language as presented by Mr. Rango, and a second by Commissioner Liebman. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll.
Commissioner Lehman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bonish,
Yes.
Commissioner Corey,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaye,
Yes.
Mayor Fernandez.
Oh, this is, yes.
Item passes
And it
5.
doesn't need to say commences in 2026.
Just add it to the end.
Got it to the commencing in 2026.
Which revised term shall commence in, okay, okay.
I just want to make sure we have our current mayor for 4 more, for 6 more years. And hopefully if that's any violation, I retract that.
No.
No, I don't know if that's campaigning from the dais.
Do we need to revote, or you got it?
Okay. With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.